right, let's just start the Q&A. We're doing this because we wrapped up season 2, and so we had put the poll out on Twitter and asked a few people like, hey, does anybody want to just hear from us? Because we constantly get like a bunch of questions, and figured it would be good for us to just check in and do some, Q&A stuff and talk about how we're all doing. But in case, because we don't actually do it in any of the episodes, other than in the outro, do we want to go around the table and just like introduce ourselves real quick?
No.
All right, well, we can skip you then. Lex, let's start with you.
I am Tim.
God damn it.
Didn't specify.
In case it's not clear.
I am Lex, the ST for Path of Night.
All right.
Garrett, I voice Johnny Saxon.
I'm Erika, I voice Wynn.
I'm Tim, and I am Miles.
I'm Rebecca, I voice Britta.
I'm Rob, and I voice Neil. I also like that we went around and everyone was like, I voiced this person. Tim was like, no, I am Miles.
I am Miles.
This is the difference.
That's actually one of the questions we'll get to later.
Yes.
All right. Before we get into like the actual questions and stuff, because we had asked for questions on like Twitter, I think we did on Facebook. We definitely put it in front of some episodes. So we got a bunch of questions from a ton of people, and we'll go through. Thank you everybody who sent questions in.
Thank
Big
you.
thanks.
Before we do that though, I kind of want to talk about like now that we've got 2 full seasons, 50 official episodes, 5 in-betweens and a special Halloween episode. Like, we've been doing this since 2019. Like, how's everybody feeling?
Do we want to narrow that question?
How do you feel now that we've like? Does anybody? How do you feel after
3 years feel surprisingly short.
It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
Big same.
I think when I don't know if it's the same for you guys. When I was younger, 3 years seemed like a long fucking time. Now 3 years is like a blink of the eye, and I'm getting really terrified about being old as dirt.
Yeah. Fuck yeah.
I just had a birthday, and one of the first graders I was working with wanted to do the "Are you 1? Are you 2?" So I let him go, and so he gets like, "Are you 25? Are you 26? Are you 26?" And I'm like, "You're not even close, bud. You're gonna drink some water.
Keep
it's gonna
going.
be a
Let's
minute."
take a break.
Baby boy, yeah, I'm 25. Just believe that lie.
just
go.
Save yourself. You're not gonna make it high.
Oh God, I don't want to do CPR on a 7-year-old.
Just never stop him. He's like 112, 113. I'm like, keep going, kid.
I am ancient child.
And this,
I am beyond time.
And this joke applies to all of us, except for Rebecca. Rebecca, you're what, like 17?
Shut up.
15 or something? I don't know.
I'm a 27.
Don't answer his questions.
You don't owe him that info.
Yeah, you can just don't.
Listen, this is a Q&A. I might as well answer questions.
True, that's fair.
I am ageless and unknowable beyond time. Fuck you, Garrett.
I can work technology, motherfuckers. Shut up. Got me there.
No, honestly, like, I'm not good at understanding time, but the fact of recording the Q&A right after we release the season 2 finale makes it more real.
Yeah.
And it's weird. I always say I'm like pretty slow with emotional processing, and it's more real due to like, the cool interactions from fans and being grateful in that way, and getting to see the rest of the group being recognized, and all that really helps me. Yeah. So that makes it seem like it's actually been happening since 2019.
Yeah. So we're recording this on a Friday. The season 2 finale came out Wednesday. So like a lot of it is very fresh, and yeah, like, I know on Wednesdays for me, like, we've got a bunch of fans on Twitter who like live tweet all the reactions, and then people on Facebook
love those.
comment. It's so legitimately like, the word I keep coming back to is sustaining, right?
Yes.
Like, it just feels really good to see people freak the fuck out.
Well, and there's so much so many kind things put through on email and like coffee and all that.
Yeah.
like all over the platforms. That, to me at least, like, again, I'm not good at recognizing time, but that makes it feel real.
Yeah, the odd part about having total strangers get excited when you like something on their timeline, or having someone from a vastly different part of my life say, hey, I stumbled upon this podcast and I clicked on it because, hey, nobody does podcasts about New England. And holy shit, that's you.
Yeah, that's happened once or twice,
Yeah,
and
that's
it's like
cool.
always very cool. Being like, guys, I found this cool podcast. Wait a minute. Seeing it reach outside, like start reaching outside the circles.
Yep.
Like, because at first, right, it was like mostly people we know and friends and all that kind of stuff. And I remember we
big
got
response on a shared Discord. At
our
one
first
point,
couple of fans who were like interacting with us were like, hey, I found you on Spotify and like I love you shit, and just felt really good. And now, like, as of today, we are I think I shared it earlier. House of Wolves Part 2 is cracking download records for us. Like,
That's awesome.
it feels, just to see that continuous growth of engagement and stuff. It feels really good. It's very gratifying and satisfying.
Yeah, it's very cool to see someone get excited about something you are also excited and passionate about.
So that's the thing, though, right? Like, we've got fans who are excited to see this stuff.
Yeah.
We are also legitimately freaking out about our own stuff.
Yeah.
Like, not in like a narcissistic way, but in like a thinking about the game, because it is a game, right? Like, so getting excited to come to the table and be like, Lex, what the fuck are you doing? Is like, feels good.
I'm sorry. No.
I was there also. I like the live tweeting because I get to practice my GIF game.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you and I are getting better at it, but
I've always been
I'm
good at it.
Slowly
Get out
but
of here.
surely.
I'm using more of them. I don't know if that means better.
Right on.
That sort of leads us, like, I guess, so we have this question from a lot of people. Why? not like a challenging way, but like, how did we do this? Like, what made us decide to like start? Lex, don't give me the lies. All right?
Well, actually, before, because I think mostly Lex should answer this question.
I agree.
But I would like to preface it a little bit, because I think a bunch of us started getting into podcasts maybe like 2013ish.
It's been a little while. Yeah.
2012.
You and I got like
I think you and I definitely were starting to listen to it. Tim definitely as well.
Yeah,
we were starting to listen to a lot of podcasts around 2013ish when things, I think podcasting started to like, that's when it really started to like gaining momentum and speed, and there's a lot of people doing cool stuff with that. And I found a Kickstarter for some board game or a tabletop game that I was really interested in. I wanted to know more about the game before I kickstarted it, and so I was looking around for reviews, and I stumbled across the One Shot.
Is that how you found One Shot?
Yeah, they did a One Shot podcast network, which is run by James D'Amato.
Shout out to James D'Amato and One Shot.
Seriously, man, I got a chance to meet him one day at Metatopia, and I was totally fucking weird because I was like geeking out, and I was like, hey, I really like your podcast, and I think I gave him like a weird vibe. Whatever. So James, if you ever hear this, I'm sorry, man, if I was like weird to you, but
He is weird. Don't worry.
But regardless, One Shot's amazing. If anybody's looking for great tabletop podcasting to listen to,
Campaign Skyjacks is like the high water mark. In
hey
a lot of
man,
ways for, like,
Campaign, the original Star Wars campaign,
Yeah.
Campaign Skyjacks, and honestly, any of the One Shot ones where they explore all the cool indie tabletops that are coming out. Those guys are such freaking important podcasters in my mind that I look to for inspiration and how to make a good podcast.
yeah.
And that extends to all of the people out in Chicago, because that's how I ended up finding all the stuff that like because JPC was on Campaign, and then he does Hey Riddle Riddle with Adal Rafai, and then Adal Rafai is part of Hello from Magic Tavern.
Yeah. Those just all.
So there's a huge I'm geeking out about the Chicago podcast scene, but those guys are really, really, really cool, and they do really awesome podcasts. And it got me thinking that that could be something cool to do.
That could be fun.
So I think I think because of that, we were, at least myself, I'm sure you and Tim were all kind of dropping ideas about podcasting be cool. And then Lex really wanted to put something out there that tapped into some of those old vibes of 90s Vampire the Masquerade that really tapped into the original kind of like fun tabletop game that was different than D&D. And I think that's Vampire. I don't know if you agree with that. But Lex, maybe you should probably talk about this from this point.
Yeah, so I was feeling kind of this as a lot of the new kind of vampire stuff is coming out. I had found myself kind of chatting about the lore and reminiscing and kind of thinking back to some of the old tabletops that I used to do, when I was like 15 years old and telling like weird World of Darkness stories. And, we were all sharing one copy of the core book and we were pooling cash to get the clan books as they were coming out. Like that era.
Was Vampire your first tabletop?
Werewolf the Apocalypse was my first World of Darkness tabletop.
What was your first tabletop?
The first tabletop I ever ran.
Is that a question?
I've got so many questions. You keep jumping the gun.
I'm sorry, man.
No, it's fine. No, you're good. You're good.
The first tabletop I ever ran was Dragon Ball Z.
Are you serious?
Yep. And it was interesting because in a lot of ways the system kind of just didn't work. And because it was a tabletop game, you'd end up with like... So in the show, most fights are one-on-one, and the characters would kind of take turns, like shooting the shot and trying to be the one that like beats this bad guy. And it didn't really work as a tabletop because it just kind of became like, 8 PCs dogpile this one guy, and he's like just super dead, no line said. So I ended up having to kind of make all these like little rules, and eventually became this whole scenario where it became more about kind of like in wrestling terms, mic work than the actual like dice and powers and whatnot. And that kind of got us wanting to try other games. So and World of Darkness ended up kind of being the best means to like have lore to discuss and have rivalries and kind of be able to get a little over the top, but keep it, within the realm of the story we're trying to tell. So that's kind of how I got there eventually.
Yeah. So some of the like further questions from people were things like, talking about the lore and like why did we want to do like what was the process of like turning that like, hey, I'm having reminiscence about Vampire into like the story you wanted to tell? Why do an actual play? Like Garrett was talking about like, our the podcast stuff that we were talking about, but like for you, like I remember you and I talking, like sitting at the house at one point, just shooting shit about stuff and kind of being like, well, we just fucking could. What was like that step for us, or for you between like, I have this idea and like, nah, fuck it. Like, let's find a mic somewhere and let's do it.
I mean, I think we bounced it back and forth, and while I was kind of hemming and hawing about the idea, it was actually Tim that was like, hey, this is actually kind of viable. Here's how we could set things up so we can afford it, because, we did kind of want to figure out how we were going to like budget the thing. And
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, I was like,
Tim.
huh. Well, I mean, if Tim is like, hey, I think we can afford this. I'm like, all right, we're good, guys.
I mean, we did have like that $300 extra left over from OI that you'd forgotten existed.
Yeah, so I had run like a whole LARP that had like a little bit of cash that I had raised, and I just kind of left it there because I wasn't running the LARP to make money, so it just sat.
I was also in charge of the cash.
Yeah, so Tim was like, hey, you have this thing. Just do the thing with this thing. And I was like, whoa.
Mind blown.
Tim.
One of the questions
let's do
for one of the questions for later is which we could just fucking do now, forget it, is so Euthanasia on Coffee specifically wanted to know like what we all do for a living. And so I'm just going to read this one verbatim because it's like, I would very much like to know, without going into too much private detail, of course, what your guys' professions are. I've been thinking about this for the longest time because the show is so well made. In my head, you guys have to be involved in show business in some way or form. Which is wildly flattering. But there is a reason that Lex is talking about like Tim being the guy who was like, hey, we can do this. So Tim, like, man, let's start with you. What do you do for a living, man?
I mean, show business also needs people who counts money, so he's completely correct. Or they are completely correct.
That's
I am a tax accountant by trade, and just a regular accountant most of the time.
And Marpo by night.
I don't know where I was going with that, but
I got you. Okay.
yeah. So I handle the money and our scheduling. So
for the show. Yeah,
Yeah.
the show would not run without Tim because
No.
like Tim provides the recording space. He is the one who schedules everything. He like the literal
Tim is the
keeper of the keys.
logistical wingman for just about everything this podcast does.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, to Lex's point, like literally without Tim, I think this would be a very cool idea that we all still had.
Yeah, we would be meeting like once every 6 months
Yeah.
somewhere and not have the right equipment still.
Yeah, I was straight up like, yo, Tim, is this possible? And Tim's like, yeah, it's actually hilariously easy. Remember this? And I was like, I don't remember that at all. And Tim's like, yeah, let's
Yeah.
do it.
and they also let me deliver lines too, so it's great.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Erika, what do you do for a living?
So I've done a lot of things since the podcast even started.
Well, because it has been over 3
Because
years.
it's been over 3 years.
So list them all in alphabetical order.
Alphabetical order, go fuck yourself.
That's a G.
It's not very teacherly of you.
So I have done special effects makeup for Halloween productions and for Christmas productions. I've done costuming for children's theater groups. I have been a performer and walked backwards through a living history museum for money in full Victorian garb. I have most recently I worked at a daycare center. And then I went to work as a special education paraprofessional in a performing arts elementary school.
Yeah.
And most recently was a one-on-one to a very special little guy, and now they've graduated me from kindergarten to first grade. And I just walk through the school all day, and people yell, "Hi, Miss Webb," and I wave and blow kisses, and they wave and blow kisses back, and it's pretty much the perfect job.
Hell yeah. Garrett, what are you doing?
I am a starving artist. I work on an indie comic book. I do freelance illustration work, commission miniature painting. Either drawing, painting, or whatever gigs with clients I can get.
You're also the one who did like all the official art for the show,
yeah.
which was extremely helpful for us to have like an actual artist like hanging out and just being like, "Hey man, can we get stuff?"
Yep.
By you, Lex.
So what I do has absolutely nothing to do with my gaming history. I am an admin manager for a tech support department at like a major HVAC company.
Yeah.
Yep, that's what I
hell
do. I create cases and
You pay
keep checks on stuff. Yeah.
Like, hell no, no. That's it's like that's one of the things that we sort of talked about when this question first came in. We talked about like it's kind of fun because this is like you guys have to be involved in like show business. Like, nah, we're just like some fucking regular ass people. Like,
That being said, if you want to hire us for show business, fucking.
I mean, yes.
Yeah, we're in.
Talent agents, please contact.
Contact me.
Yeah, all talent inquiries should be directed to Tim.
I'm an ex reporter. I'm currently a communications director, so I do a lot of like brand management stuff. But like,
you used to be a newspaper
I used to be a newspaper man. And you like talking about Erika's. We've done a lot of stuff. Like I work for nonprofits, but for a big chunk of the beginning of this, I was fully unemployed for like half the last 3 years. So like this has been a very fun project.
What? COVID didn't make that easier to get a job?
It's so weird when you get laid off right before COVID starts. It makes it real hard to find a job.
Coincidence?
Coincidence. And then our actual showbiz person, Rebecca.
I do. I'm an author and a playwright. So in that amount, yes.
moving into like having answered that right, like, and sort of talking about the genesis of the idea, and how Tim helped us to actually actualize it. What was sort of the process? Like, we sort of all know, like, obviously we all know each other, but like, and Lex, you obviously would, like, as the sort of spearhead of this, like, creatively. How do we? A bunch of people wanted to know, how do we settle on us as the group to do this? Like, you know, did we have a casting process? Did we all know each other beforehand? Like, why were we the people chosen? And then, because I sort of know the answer to this, I'm just going to loop into it. How much experience, we can all go around and talk about it after. So, like, how much experience do each of us have with gaming and with the World of Darkness? I know it's like a lot of questions, but they all sort of bleed into each other. Well, the answers, the answers to the later ones, like bleed into the other ones.
In answering this, we're going to veer
We're
off
going to
the
be
path.
talking
Yeah.
veer off
That
the
makes
path. We had a lot of
perfect
different
sense.
people ask these different questions. So to start with, like, why are we the group? What, like, how did we all come together to do this?
So when I decided to do this, I distinctly recall actually having the conversation with you guys. You guys were like, oh, you know, it can be whoever you want. It doesn't have to be us or anything like that. And I took that to heart, honestly. Originally, I actually was not sure who at all would be part of the cast of characters. So what I did was I made a list of things that I wanted at the table. And in terms of like player mentalities, people's ability to kind of like create dialogue between characters, I just kind of really spent a lot of time being like, you know, who has these like distinct voices and personalities that I think would be comfortable on a mic. And as I made the list, I just kind of crossed off names until I came to a group that I thought would be able to steadily attend, who would play characters dynamic from each other. So like, even like among, you know, the guys, right? The three of you, you guys do not generally have any interest in portraying similar characters at all, and can look at the exact same thing and really just kind of see three totally different things. And wow, and I just kind of felt that sort of attitude as a player was, you know, what the table would need. And I think no one knew Rebecca at the time. She was
I knew you
Yeah.
best, and then I knew Rob from Parlor LARP from playing Camarilla Vampire,
Yep.
and I knew Garrett from Boffer, but only a little bit. We hadn't talked very much,
No.
and I think maybe I met. I'm not even sure if I'd ever met you two in passing, Erika and Tim.
No. I met you for the first time when we went to our first, hey, this is what we're going to do here.
Yeah, so I think Lex and Rob I knew best, and then Garrett a small amount. I pet JoJo at Boffer and said hi to you.
I think we were at a Boffer LARP, and I think you were doing like a narrator kind of position. So you were doing several different characters over the course of like a Boffer weekend.
Yeah.
I think we'd also hung out a couple times at parties at Lex's place or something like that.
Yeah, yes, we
And-
had spoken.
And I was just, when we were just spitballing ideas for people, I was like, well, you know, Rebecca's really talented at role-playing different kinds of characters. She might be a really good person to ask to, you know, be part of the team.
Thank you.
No.
Well, it's funny, right? Because, like, obviously, so I've known Lex, I've known you for a while, but like Garrett and Tim, I've known you guys for like, we've known each other like 20 years at this point.
I deny everything.
Okay. And
Good job, Tim.
Lex, like 2008, I think, is when I first met you. We were like hanging out.
Yeah.
Erika, I've known you for a while now. And
2012 was, I had a friend from a L5R tabletop
Yes.
say,
Yeah, there you go.
hey, I found this L5R LARP. Do you and like this random hodgepodge of people I've collected want to come on this car trip?
Yeah.
And I was like, well, yeah, fuck yes, I do. And so I went up, and Rob and Lex were storytelling, and Tim and Garrett were
Oh,
playing.
shit, that's right.
Yeah. And I walked in, and my clan murdered a PC that night.
Yes, you did.
And I helped.
What a tough night for man. That was a brutal night. I can't remember that.
That was a brutal night. And then after that, I just kind of like, okay, I need to mainline more of this LARP thing.
I'm here now.
Yep. So the same friend who had dragged me to L5R dragged me to a vampire LARP, and my first character was actually Malkavian.
Hell yeah.
And I made the decided choice she would not be good for the podcast. She was mute.
Well, that's
But that gave me an opportunity to
so
learn how vampire society works without saying anything that was gonna get my shit pushed in.
yeah.
Yeah, actually, I remember when we were talking about the people to invite in, because I mean, I think you're alluding to the fact that myself, Rob, and Tim, the three of us, we've been gaming together forever. So I think part of the reason that Lex tagged us is because the three of us have we are ingrained with banter and being able to play off one another, right?
To the point where you and I occasionally have to step back and be like, "Hey, man, we can't banter." We used to play D&D. This is super off topic, but like we used to play D&D, and Garrett and I would just go into like a tavern in D&D, and our characters would just fucking banter for like an hour, and Tim would be like, "Can we do plot, please? Can we please do plot?"
I can actually see Tim's desire to say that.
So I stopped DMing for years. I can keep these people in line.
I'm sorry, man.
I remember when we mentioned Erika, I was a little bit nervous at first, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but you are so good at portraying characters.
Yeah.
And I wasn't too familiar with Erika the person. I was but very familiar with all of the characters you would play at Parlor LARPs, and you go all in.
Yeah.
And it is intimidating, and I wasn't sure if the person behind those characters, how flexible they were with being in other groups. And I mean, I eat all of those words. Like, you are just an incredibly talented role player.
100%. Yeah.
And you know, like probably one of the best additions to the group that we've got. Like, truly.
There's feel like LARP and stuff. There is something that like the audience will never see, sadly. But like Erika and Rebecca both have like particularly do this like physicality at LARP. Like, you guys are both so good at like that. Occasionally, like I remember some of the recordings very early on, like, and we're all guilty of this. Just like, man, you got to say that stuff out loud because like nobody can see how good you're being right now.
It's gotten to the point where sometimes I'm role-playing Britta with an awkwardly straight face because I have to remember to narrate what she's doing instead of doing it.
I forget to narrate the things Wynn does because I'm just busy doing it.
Sometimes, and then sometimes you like graphically describe how you're making hand job gestures at people. Like, it's
well, that's important things that I need the audience to know.
Very important.
I don't want to speak to everybody but like for me, yeah, like some of us, we didn't know each other as well when we first started, and for me, like this group has become very, just the process of doing this has like, you guys are some of my best friends at this point. Like this has become very tight.
Yeah, this is my go-to group for like, okay, if I want to do a thing, this is who I look to do a thing.
Which to Lex's credit, right, like putting together the right group where everybody is just clicking, like
for Rebecca and me to come in kind of late to the game because you guys have all known each other the longest, and to have us just kind of fit in so seamlessly, really kind of speaks to Lex's skill at judging character.
I was so nervous. I like, from my perspective of everyone knowing each other, and then like especially being younger and like knowing that each and every one of you just has years of role play experience that you've used and gotten better, and like it shows in your talent. I actually remember I was specifically really nervous that I'd like basically just been picked to fill the gap. It was like a paranoia that I had at the beginning.
I was worried that I was picked for the same reason.
Don't worry, guys. I was picked to fill the gap.
You were all
you guys are off the
picked
hook.
to fill the gap, okay? All right, everyone.
There we go. We're all on the same page. All of us are gap fillers.
I'm the gap.
Mind the gap.
No, I get it. Yeah.
No, but like over time, as you were saying, I mean, it's just putting our hearts in this project. It shows, and like having that really pulls it together.
Yeah. And one of the things that this table does really well, and I did comment on Twitter at one point, it was after Wynn's big disclosure about her child.
Yeah.
We stopped the table a couple times, and they came. The episode where she one-shotted someone and the episode where she broke down about her lost child
goddamn
were
roller coaster.
one goddamn day.
That was one session, yeah.
That was
shit
one
crazy.
session. And so I was riding high and I needed to be talked down from that. And I was riding low and I needed a minute. And at every single step, this table really well was just like, okay, let's take care of Erika.
We talk. I mean, fuck. Let's just jump into it. Like we target we put the content warning at the beginning of every episode, right? Like, hey, there's some shit. This fucking World of Darkness. Like, there's some shit.
Yeah.
And one of the lines we put in there is, we've all talked about safety and consent and comfort. And that's not like we did that early on, right? And it's like, hey, here's what we're gonna talk about. But like, that's also sort of an ongoing process constantly, and that's
Yeah.
to me, like a very good example of us just like checking in and making sure shit's good. And
I mean, I think, so often years of experience role playing is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
you can become
Right.
complacent. Yeah.
And also like if you don't strive to get better at what you're doing and be aware of what it is that you're doing, right? And I feel grateful that everybody at the table here is very self-aware and interested in getting better at communal storytelling, right?
Yeah.
And I think part of that a lot of people are interested in like, the indie gaming community is looking at, well, all right, well, what are games? How do we make them better? What is role playing? That does weird things to you mentally.
Yeah.
Let's be careful about that, and let's give each other support when we're inhabiting different personas. Like that's and I think because we've had years of experience with this, we've, I think when we first started playing D&D, we were probably some pretty bullheaded with each other. I know I definitely had some moments that were not good role playing.
I
where
would
was
like to
being a
just
jerk.
reiterate right now, for the record on air, that the mermaid was looking at me and you can suck my ass.
But I like the fact that, and I think the reason I still game with you guys is because of the fact that you're willing to look at gaming sessions we've had in the past and like, it didn't feel good. I left feeling upset at my friends. Why am I upset at my friends? This is probably why. Well, let's get past it. Let's get better. Let's have discussions about that. And remember, this is a game at the end of the day.
Yes, with those histories, like we had sort of talked about, right? What is everybody's relationship to tabletop games, right? Like, we had no experience podcasting. What is what are our experiences with tabletops and with the World of Darkness?
I honestly did not have a good start with tabletop games. I tried a couple when I was like in mostly high school, but really like my primary form of role playing was forum role play. I did a lot of like forum, was it freeforums.net, I think, or I don't remember, but like guy online, just random forum minutia. I used to do that every day, and then I kept that up for a long time, and I had the chance to try Boffer, and I was so excited because that incorporated like, I do a lot of like acting as well, like anything in theater as well as playwriting, and I was so excited about getting to like be an NPC, do costuming, and with getting into Boffer, I had the chance to try Parlor LARP, and that was the first time for me of actually substantially encountering Vampire the Masquerade. I had come into contact with it in passing. I'm pretty sure I probably accidentally played really shitty versions of it on Guy Online. I'm pretty sure I signed up for like something like that. But I remember, I making a toreador for a local parlor LARP. Our local parlor LARP was my first interaction, and I learned the genre in that way. And I was so excited about it, being someone who has very like gothy alternative interests and style. It was something that like had been on the fringes of stuff I loved for a very long time, but I had never had the chance to really engage with it until then. So I think when we had started this podcast, maybe I'd been LARPing for 6 months. Does that sound right?
Something like that, I think.
Yeah, you were very early in.
Yeah. And I remember that being part of why I was leaning towards Britta having amnesia, so that I could, like, maybe if I, like, I was doing okay learning genre. I like learning through doing, but definitely helps when you have, you match a character to your capabilities. It really gets you through a lot. And I think that was, I don't think I'd ever played Vampire Tabletop until this at all.
Man, my first Vampire Tabletop was at a father and son's hobby shop in fucking Manchester, Connecticut, when we played Dueling D20 Vampire the Masquerade, because I didn't know the rules. Oh yeah. Ask Adam about this.
You were a vampire player from the beginning.
Wow, that was my first game. We played that together at that fucking hobby shop, and it was us and the two weird old men that played there, and it was very weird. I remember playing a Bruja. I remember being covered in duct tape.
Knew it.
Like keeping my intestines in with like duct tape and stuff like that after like multiple combats and everything else like that. But my first World of Darkness was Werewolf the Apocalypse, actually. And that was because of the card game and specifically because of Curb Stomp.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. It's very
Wait, what is
specific
this?
card. It's
So Werewolf the Apocalypse used to have a card game, much like
Rage or whatever, right?
Vampire the Eternal Struggle.
right.
But it was its own thing.
I remember getting at one of the
and
cards, like Scribe
they
magazine
made
was.
a point of being as graphic and like 90s Iron Age comic booky as possible.
Okay.
And there was a card.
And it is what is described.
I've warmed up to tabletop since we've played this, but I still haven't warmed up to card game and tabletop inspired card games, or like how that works.
To be totally honest, some of the most vicious politics I've ever seen has been over Vitesse, which is Vampire the Eternal Struggle. Mm-hmm. It's kind of designed to be this multiplayer game, so usually 3 or more players at the table. Mm-hmm. And while there are certainly card mechanics, which are, very important to the game, there's also a lot of, hey, man, if you do this, I'm not going to, like, attack you, and we can work together. And then, of course, because of the way the game works, there are inevitable betrayals and lots of drama from it. It's good. It's fun.
Yeah, I'm good. You can go.
What? Seriously? So, like...
What?
No,
Which
never mind.
part? Wait, like,
Continue.
I mean,
No.
I started playing D&D back when I was like 6 or 7 with my uncle, and then I bought the books because I didn't have anyone to play with for the better part of a decade. So I was very good with the rules and less good with other people dealing with my rules.
Tim had a 10-year training montage for mechanics.
I would remember that.
I owned a lot of books before I started running into people that would play.
It's funny, I had the opposite problem. I did.
And then I still collect a lot of books.
That's true.
Yep.
As someone who stays in his house on the weekends, the living room is literally a third filled with books.
I just want to shout out to past Tim's role playing. I'm just gonna look at Garrett and say, "Who calls you Sunset?" And that's it. That can be an inside joke for 3 people. But
Fuck
like,
that, I'll throw him under the bus. There's the first campaign that we played together where Tim was the DM.
Yep.
The big bad that we were chasing kicked the shit out of us. And then Tim's self-insert NPC just like stormed out of nowhere and killed the big bad. And like it was like the most like, hey, thanks guys for playing. Watch me be cool while you guys are all just on the ground fucking bleeding out. And it was like, all right.
Well, in Stormin, he was with you guys. He just killed
Sure.
hey, I was.
Tim's character's like, you guys don't know the mechanics enough. I've been working on this for a while.
To be fair, the
That is
group
not-
had to give me a ring of luck because I just could not roll a d20.
I mean,
I couldn't hit.
Garrett infamously bad at rolling dice.
I'm nodding. I just realized the audience can't see that. So I came very late to tabletop gaming. I was raised in a church that basically said, if you do this, it is a sure path to hell. And my mother was very worried. And then I realized I was 27 years old and I didn't need permission to play games anymore. So I started playing every tabletop that people would invite me to.
And now you're going to hell.
And now I'm probably going straight to hell, but they're all coming with me and we're going to set up a tabletop there. And we all don't have anything to do anymore, so we'll actually show up. But I was in a group where we played a lot of different tabletops. We did X Crawl, we did BNS Vampire, we did Call of Cthulhu, we did what is it called? It's very old. It's I'm gonna hate that I can't come up with Rollmaster.
Oh wow!
Wow.
Yep. I was
I know that. Yeah.
I was an elf dragon slayer with stilt walking as a random skill, and it all happened to coincide in one glorious scene where I ran across stalactites to slay 2 dragons. It was fucking
shit.
phenomenal. I shouldn't remember that. That was like 8 years ago. But the good tabletop moments stick with you. But I got my start with L5R. And then I met a lot of really great actual role players through tabletopping. And that segued into being invited to the L5R LARP that Rob and Lex ran. And
I'm
then
jealous.
it was a lot of fun. And then that hey, we run this other, indie LARP on the same weekend as L5R. It's called 7th Sea.
AEG weekend.
AEG weekend. And it was just such a great weekend, and
So exhausting.
it was so exhausting.
yeah.
But we were
good
so
times.
much
Took
younger.
the rest of the week to recover.
Yeah,
Some good times though.
yeah.
Yeah, it was good shit.
I feel like meeting good role players makes for me like I met good role players through Buffer and Parlor, and that made me love tabletop. But if you meet good role players through tabletop, which I now have good role players in tabletop,
Well, I
it pulls you in so much.
Yeah, I met good role players because I met the tabletoppers through theater.
Yeah.
So I met a lot of people who were really involved in the RP and less so in the mechanics. And unfortunately, that would culminate in 2-hour-long side scenes between the ST and one character while the rest of us were like, I guess we're getting sushi for dinner because it's gone over 2 hours, so he's paying for sushi now. There were rules of conduct. But eventually it segued to LARP, and now it's kind of culminated in this amazing tabletop, and that's more of a combined story than anything else.
Yeah.
So for me, I think my first tabletop was Dungeons and Dragons. I actually played it when I was 10 years old. And I enjoyed it so much that my dad busted out his old first edition box that he had in the basement and was like, here you go, just have fun. And so that was it, right? I was big into miniatures games, Hero Quest, eventually went into Warhammer and stuff like that. And it was just my house growing up was a friendly house to make believe and things like that. And my older sister got into Vampire, back in its heyday in the mid 90s, and I would want to game with her and her friends, but since there was enough of an age gap, she was like, get out of here. So I didn't get to actually play with them. My first vampire game was at a dusty old gaming shop called The Grid in Manchester, Connecticut. So Tim was over at Father and Son. I was at The Grid.
The grid still exists.
It does. Carl who runs the shop's a great guy.
Is he the Gazinta Gazouta guy?
No, that's
it's a
Bob.
different place.
That's Bob. It wasn't a very good game because it was a local gaming shop tabletop of Vampire, which is it's you had the experience. It's not that great. But then my sister, as I started to get older and showed that I could be mature at the gaming table, she started to kind of
Trusted with others.
yeah, and she ended up bringing me along to a couple of the old East of the River LARPs, which were the first, as far as I remember, the first LARPs in the area for Vampire. I didn't really care for it that much. and she kind of introduced me to some other people in the gaming community. She actually introduced me to Chris.
Yep.
And was like, hey, you're about to go to high school. There's this kid, Chris, you might actually be friends with, and kind of like introduced us. Chris is like the glue between me, Tim, and Rob.
Yep.
He decided to bail on us and move out to the West Coast.
I don't even think he listens to our podcast either. So like, we can bash him all we want.
Yeah. But Chris is an amazing storyteller, amazing role player. And I he definitely kept us together and kept us going with that. And from there, I think my sister at some point eventually convinced me to come back to like doing parlor LARPs. Because I wasn't a big fan. I preferred tabletopping, but my sister said, you should come. I think it was actually L5R. And once again, she was like, hey, there's this cool dude, Lex, that you might actually be friends with there. And I was like, I don't know. Last time you introduced me to someone was Chris. I don't know how to... It's like,
He abandoned me.
I don't know if you're a good judge of my character or not, and who I might like, but no, once again, my sister was right. She doesn't listen to this either, so fuck her.
She'll never hear this.
She'll never hear this. But and then I met Lex, and our characters like had like a fucking like intense first meeting, and
we instantly had drama.
Yeah, but like there was a glint in the eye of like, oh yeah, you're down to clown, let's do this. And
okay, that's not how that works.
But no, but truthfully, like,
yeah, can.
Was this the Daigo's time story?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is what led to it. Yeah,
but like our characters immediately had drama, and we were both down to enjoy like kind of like having that drama play out. And then we went out to like a party afterwards, and I got really obliterated. And we ended up just kind of bonding in our drunken stupor, and then from there we just kind of became pretty quick friends.
It's just guy love between two guys.
Yeah, just
a lot of
dude
alcohol
love.
and Soul Calibur
and Marlboro 27s.
Yep.
Morley cigarettes.
Brought to you by Wolf Panther.
So I actually didn't play in tabletops for like a few years.
Have you still? Have
very rarely. But there was actually a handful of other storytellers that were much older than myself at the location that I used to run games at. And it was three in particular I remember that were pretty much mentors to me for the experience. Actually, there's nods to them in the podcast.
Can I interrupt you? Can I interrupt you for a second? You're not actually explaining why you didn't play in any games.
I was running them. Yeah.
How many years?
Actually, so there was a while
What time
where
is it?
I would be like, hey guys, I don't know if I want to run a game. And someone would be like, I will buy you a bunch of packs of cigarettes right now and like the book to run the game if you run the game. And I was like, all right guys, make characters. And that they got me every time. And it was actually a lot of fun. But it was three storytellers that were kind of like these mentors. And I remember because each of them ran what were pretty much my favorite tabletops kind of coming up. And one was my friend Les, who was a retired police officer and was running a Vampire the Masquerade game. And when he ran a Vampire the Masquerade game, it was a big table, a lot of like really kind of interesting characters. And the game went for like a few years. And that is where the killing spree came from.
Is that really where the killing spree
That
comes
is
from?
where the killing spree came from.
That's awesome.
Wow,
And
that's amazing.
I remember being specifically like wowed by the concept of it. And what he did when he ran his tabletop game, he was like, I'm going to set it in 92. And I'm going to go for like a lot of grunge vibes. And it's going to take place on the West Coast. And a lot of the decisions I made when kind of thinking about what I wanted this game to be like actually came from like blueprints that he had shown me when I was kind of first really like learning how to tell like a more convoluted story in a tabletop game.
Yeah.
And Killing Spree actually comes from him. Jack who is a member of the Killing Spree, who has not seen a bunch of screen time yet, but there's some stuff for him.
Oh, good.
You don't have to.
Jack was a character he played in a tabletop game that I ran.
That's
And
awesome.
he was such a blast to play under and to storytell for. And so that was kind of where I really figured out, I think, how Vampire works as a game. And in addition to him, there was a guy that we called Cyber Dan, who was he was cool because his whole thing was, I mean, he told tight, very like visceral, interesting stories. But he was the guy who would say the cyberpunk quote of style over substance all the time. And he made a point of just giving the coolest descriptions for like NPCs, and his voice would like kind of change depending on who he was portraying.
Yeah.
And then there was a guy who we named Slain. We called him Slain. And he had actually written his own fantasy setting and had gone into this incredible detail. And he was so passionate about it and so like interested in this story that you could ask him pretty much anything about his world. And it's not even that he would be able to come up with something on the spot. It was that he had already like envisioned it. And that was kind of like really inspiring to me, because I really saw the value of building this like flowing living world in your head, so that when people are like role playing in that setting, you're just kind of like on point with descriptions and characters that really kind of fit what you're going for. And it's kind of like those three that I really looked to as these sources of like wisdom as I was, smoking cigarettes and like telling edgy stories. That was the kind of the core. And after that, it was like LARP. And even then, I was like, when I was first attending LARPs, I was like, this is nowhere near as cool as what Les is running. And I was like, I was so grumpy about it at first. But I kind of, came to see like, while different, it has its own mystique and magic. Yeah.
Well, also, like, just because you've told us this story, before finding out what LARPs weren't you running like 20-person tabletops?
I ran a
like a psycho.
I ran a 25-player Werewolf the Apocalypse tabletop game.
God damn.
And it was consisted of 5 packs. We had 2 big rooms that we played in, and each pack kind of had their own table. And they would do like a lot of like role playing on their own, and they would kind of like talk to each other and coordinate big plans amongst these 5 packs of werewolves. And I'd be running small scenes for them. And over the course of like a 9-hour tabletop session, they'd eventually be like, all right, all the packs are coming together, we're doing this thing. And then I would ron a 25-person mass combat on tabletop.
Oh my
Damn
God.
it, Lex.
Like 11 o'clock at night at that point?
Do that shit.
No. No, it was like 2, and we went to like 5. And it was weekly.
Oh, God.
But man, it was so fun. It was
Stamina's a lot easier to come by when you're younger.
Yep.
Oh, damn.
smoking cigarettes outside, huge circle of players just kind of like chatting as their characters. I had no idea LARP was a thing, but like, but when I found it, it was like, oh, okay, maybe I was doing that wrong. No wonder combat took so long.
Mine was I same as Garrett. Like I 10 or 11 or whatever. I played with my cousins once, the D&D, my first game, and then didn't really play. Like, I played like a couple times, and then end of senior year in high school, I was like talking to Chris about doing stuff, and Chris was like, yeah, I played D&D, and I was like, oh, like he was just talking about D&D, and I was like, oh shit, I played that once. Like, it was cool. I had kind of a fun time. Nobody ever played with me. He's like, well, that's cool, come, we're having a tabletop on Saturday, we're coming.
We poached you.
Make a character.
Shanghai.
And I was like, I don't know, man, I don't know if I want to make a character. It's just like, I don't know if I'm really into D&D. It just was fun at the time. He's like, that's cool, fine, fuck you, you're making a character. I was like, all right, cool. And I showed up and I made my bard, and I played with Tim and Garrett at the table. And then that game ran for a long time, and that's how I met
Also shout out to Jeff and Beth.
Jeff and Beth. That was our crew. Our crew.
I heard you died.
So
You've heard that story at least once.
You've heard the story a million times. Legitimately though, that story. So that story of that. So I made a half elven bard, and we were doing a thing, and then Garrett's fighter got possessed, and
Tisk.
He could,
So here's the thing.
no. This is going to be a compliment.
We
to you.
already established that I am terrible at rolling dice,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Except when it doesn't count.
Yeah.
And
This counted though. This
Garrett's
did count.
character gets possessed, and it's a whole thing, and he hits me for a bunch of damage, and I'm like, I drop, and Chris is like, it's one of the only mistakes Chris ever made. Chris is like, well, you don't drop, man. You're like a 9th level bard. Like, you got a lot of hit points. Like, you're fine. You don't drop. And I was like, I don't know, man. I got hit for a lot. My dude's just a bard. Like, I think I cry. And he's like, no, you don't cry. You're fine.
Yeah, Rob is legitimately like, no, my character crumples on the ground and starts crying because I just got hit. He's like, no, you can stand on your feet.
And so I'm like, okay, and I try and like fix Striker, and it doesn't work. And then Garrett fucking crits for max damage and bisects me in half. This is in second.
It was like the best. It was like the best roll of my
Best roll
entire
you've ever
life.
seen. And I just fucking dead.
And I was possessed by the DM and killing my friend. It was the best attack roll and damage roll I've ever had.
So what ended up
Ever will
happening
have.
though? So the game that Chris was running was a low magic game.
Yeah.
And so like Garrett like broke from the party and picked up my body and like went back to our fucking like Chris's old PC because Chris was running at the time. Because Jeff had been running and Tim ran. Like it was the same campaign with rotating DMs.
Yeah.
And Chris was running, and so his old PC was a cleric.
We didn't have a professional DM like Lex at the time.
Yeah, we needed a Lex.
Someone who's chronically DMing.
We badly needed a Lex. He brings my body back and is like, I do a resurrection ritual, and I'm like a weird half dwarf at that point, and those all sorts of stuff. And I remember talking to Chris and hanging out and being like, man, this feels kind of like narratively unsatisfying. Like something feels weird. I got my character back, but like something feels weird about this. And Chris was like, I know, I don't like it either.
Yep.
Something feels weird about that. And it was D&D. Like, people resurrect in D&D all the time. Even though we were in a low magic setting, like, it's something that happens. And so Chris and I, like, outside in the dark, like, neither of us were smokers, but, like, we were smoking. But we were essentially, like, taking a smoke break and sitting outside in the dark at CCSU. And Chris was like, yeah, what are we going to do? And so Chris and I came up with this plan to... Nope, because all of our PCs had, like, evil doppelgangers and all sorts of shit. It was like, well, how about this one's yours? And... We conspired to keep me dead. And, like, I played the fake me for a little while until it was time to do the big reveal, and then there was a boss fight, and then my PC was fucking dead. And it felt way better. And that has, like, been... The reason I bring that up is, like, that has been narratively formative to my understanding of how to, like, roleplay and how to... Yeah. This fact is like, yo, no, dude, like, I know it was a random roll and I fucking died, but there was story and narrative there, and that's where I wanted to stay. And then with, like, the game, because, like, we were all in college and, like, whatever, so we all went to different places. The game, like, didn't really continue after a while, just because that's what happens. And I was in a couple other things, and had played tabletops and stuff with you guys over time. And then, in, like, 2008... Garrett was like, hey man, I'm playing this like samurai thing, and I was like, that sounds dumb. I don't want to do that. I like tabletopping,
and
like,
then I managed to amp you up into dumb ideas, which is I think a consistent.
That is a consistent part of our friendship.
Yeah, is that I will start joking about some offhanded comment. And
you will talk about
wind
something
you up
that
into
you are
like taking
into,
it serious,
and then I'll do the thing where I'm like, "This is stupid. I'm not doing it."
Hey Rob, you want to invest some money in this miniatures game?
But if I fuck, dude,
I'm sorry.
But yeah, so to this day, I was like, I'm not going to do that. And then like a week later, I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. But if I did, here's what I would do. And then you were like, well, that's how it works. And then a week later, I'm like, so I'm not going to do that. But if I did, here's the thing. And I built a sheet. And then like it just goes on from there. And then I went to fucking L5R and I played in L5R. And again, my character got killed because of Garrett.
Hey, I'm sorry.
No, it was politics. It was no, I fucking.
It was
died.
a vicious game.
It was a vicious game. It was fucking vicious. And then instead of making a new character, I stepped on staff, and then like I met Lex, and and then eventually I was like, well, I do these indie games, but I don't play vampire stuff. And
Okay,
then
Meatloaf, calm down.
and then I made a fucking hunter.
Any role-playing game.
And then I
but
made a
won't
fucking
play
vampire, and then like just so now here
And a
I am.
kinfolk.
And a kinfolk. Yeah, no, now I'm just in.
Imbued.
Like
Yeah.
now I'm just here.
Of course, with those two Jimokes
Carver
playing, I'm
Cative.
like, well, what am I gonna play if you're
Mike
both off
Cative.
at this thing?
to be-
So now I gotta go.
To be fair, I started playing the Parlor LARP with L5R as well.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to get back into Vampire because I had some bad experiences with it previously to that, and I just didn't enjoy the LARP scene. But another one of our mutual friends, Adam Satori, convinced me to come back to was it the Sabat game?
Sabat.
Yeah, and I played that and I ended up having a pretty freaking good time. So.
And playing the fucking blueprint for Kabir.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Kabir is basically an old character of mine that
So
got lifted for an NPC on my sheet.
Kabir is like if the Sabat PC that he came from had like was like, you know what? I don't do meth anymore. And it's like, I'm gonna get my shit together and I'm gonna get a girlfriend.
I'm going to use this as a segue to another question that was asked. I'm just kind of fucking jumping around here, but like, so who is everyone's favorite NPC in this in Path of Night? Like, bring it back to Path of Night a little bit. Who is everybody's favorite NPC? And Lex, yours is a two-parter because it was who's your favorite, like, and then who do you like to portray the most? They can be the same one, but like,
You take some time. We can go.
who is everybody's favorite? Erika, I can see you. Go ahead.
Honestly, it's
You can say
You
me,
can say
it's
a
fine.
couple, man. I don't care.
it's gonna be a bunch. That's the issue. Is that it's not like
Top
a top
three.
two. It's
Yeah,
a
what's
top five.
Do top three. Fuck them.
Okay.
Well,
Break the
fuck one of
rules.
In no particular order. Joey, Kabir, and Chaps.
them. Yeah. They're good little guys.
Yep.
This is all the people that Wynn loves.
Yeah. Well, not all of them.
And then it's
All the
Rusty,
people
right?
win.
Then it's followed by Rusty.
No, that was
No.
hate fucking.
Well, so one of the other the variant on this question too, right, is like who do you like as a listener or however, like I don't think there's any bad NPCs, but like, oh God, who do you love to fucking hate?
Reese.
God, I mean, there's a few options, right? But Reese is such
It's
a
fucking
good one.
Reese.
No,
I mean,
he took my son, and I'm gonna eat his brain one day.
Also, he's Tremere. Fuck
Yeah.
that clan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Just
sorry.
as
I'll
so,
put that to tape on the radio. Fuck Tremere.
when I first came to Vampire the LARP, my two choices for starting character were either Malkavian or Salubri. And I was said, if you play a Salubri healer, you will not make it through the door. I was like, well, I'd like to make it through the door, so I guess I'll play Malkavian. But Salubri healer is my white whale.
One of these days.
One of these-
One of these days we'll play another weirdo. We'll play like just a bunch of misfit weirdos. And
What do you mean in another game?
Favorite NPC? Probably Elsa Linden is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
You had such a cool arc.
It's
with
the
her.
punk outfit.
Yeah, well, especially the punk outfit. But like my interactions with her are probably some of the longest and some of the better ones, and they're kind of back and forth. I'm trying to think of who else. That I immediately ended up hating for various reasons.
A-Dog and C-Dog.
No, I understand that they're half vampires. It's fine.
Oh no, I forgot.
Oh no,
Are you bringing them back?
she was.
Oh, Lex.
Do we have to record a thing?
Hey, we
They were no, I can't. They
Well,
were
no.
supposed to be in the finale
Were they gonna be assaulting the mansion?
as shovelheads. Yeah.
Oh,
and I hate that I forgot.
You know, to be perfectly
so
honest,
sorry.
they still have to get out of there in a van.
You've got time.
and I had this whole vision in my head, and I just like
Well, now it's a vision in our heads, and we need you to make it real.
vampires.
just so
We
sad.
can revisit it in a flashback.
Yeah. Weekend Nightmares is
Hey
coming
man,
up,
I
man.
made a character who could see the past for a reason. Let's.
I wanted so bad to have like them be like, "Hey, sup guys?" Like just so.
You guys here
pleasantly
eating
surprised
elders
to
too?
see you. Yeah. You support too?
Check it out, we bagged Madonna.
Hey yo, now I know y'all be loving this shit right here.
Ow.
After Elsa Linden, I think other than my own sire, who's been on screen very rarely, but
Yeah, but every time he comes on, he's supportive and loves you.
Yeah,
so like,
And the whole game changes.
yeah, he's a big impact on the direction of the character. I think I really enjoy when I get around to it. I love Weathers a lot too,
oh, Weather's fucking great.
and Nofrit. Is it Nofrit or is it
Nofrit.
It is
Nofrit.
Nofrit.
Or was it Khalees? Was Khalees the one he interacted with?
Khalees is the one you talk to. Nofret is the, like...
Architect of my demise.
Yeah.
She hasn't really been on screen, right?
She came on screen and like glared at
She
him.
was seen.
Yeah, she was definitely seen.
My favorite NPC to hate was definitely Reese for most of it. Sometimes Pendragon.
Yeah, man.
Those are definitely the two biggest ones.
I'm surprised you didn't put Arabella on your list.
She occupies a weird nexus between the two.
She's like caught in the middle of like, I fucking hate this bitch.
I think I used to dislike her a lot more till we had our rooftop scene. Like, and it really solidified the fact that we're like very tired of other vampires bullshit.
She was definitely like, you're so handsome and smart. And he's like, oh my God, you see me. and Neil's like, friend, she's infernal. This is very bad. And shh, no, just stop, okay?
Whatever.
So am I. It's not important.
Infernal.
I got this.
Who's to say?
Okay?
Yeah, what are even demons? Like, shut up.
And Neil, seriously, what am I going to need to know about demons?
2 hours later. What do we know?
I mean, I haven't thought of it yet.
Rebecca.
I can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
The
Garrett.
list is so.
We're giving you more
You
time.
didn't know. You didn't.
So, once again, I'll give a couple. There's 3 NPCs that I think really have stuck with me so far. The first 2 are Johnny's allies, which are Weathers and Kabir. Kabir is great because I love the clan Ravnos. They're one of my favorite clans. And I love that kind of just like trickster kind of character, and having that as like one of your best friends is fun because it always is it's a monkey wrench you can throw into a scene where it's like, oh, you know what? I'll call backup. I'll call the guy who's unreliable and it makes things go crazy, right? And then Weathers is I mean, he's definitely patterned after Theo Bell, right? And Theo Bell, if you don't know, is the most badass character in all of Vampire the Masquerade. He is the freaking man. And so getting to have kind of like Theo Bell light on my sheet as like my mentor, awesome. And it's just fun to have that kind of like old man come in and be like, all right, kid, let me show you the ropes. Like that's fun.
Yeah,
So I love...
Kabir and Weathers are kind of like the two halves of Johnny.
So I absolutely love those 2 characters. My favorite NPC, I wish it's criminal that we did not get more of him, which is Shaw.
Yeah.
I remember Lex explaining the concept of Shaw to me and being like, I hate this motherfucker already. But like in that like the perfect kind of heel,
Yes.
right?
Garrett was tilted about this dude before we played Section 1.
But like in a way that like a heel tilts you, where you're like, oh, that guy, he's so hateable. I love it.
Yeah.
And Shaw was perfect, and like I'm still bummed that he got killed because I hate. So
Did he get killed?
yeah, well, I mean he did,
Keeping
right?
it in the passive voice, I see that.
Someone tripped
He was-
face first into my teeth.
Well, but I mean, here's the thing, like. Garrett dislikes killing my villains. I much prefer keeping my villains around, even to like the chagrin
Yeah.
of like my fellow players at the table. Like back in the day, playing tabletop games with like Tim and Rob and stuff like that. Like, we've had actually even with Lex like we were playing Gutsers, right? Which is the
God.
Iron
Fucking
Kingdoms role playing
Croyd
game.
hates you, motherfucker, so bad.
And I think I have, to the detriment of the table, kept villains alive.
Alive and triple crossed.
Yeah, and it tickles me to no end, like knowing that they're gonna come back around to visit punishment back on us, which I think is great. I think it's so much more interesting when you leave a villain alive and give them extra reason to do bad stuff to you. It makes for a more interesting game, right?
does, it's
Like,
fun.
come on. So Shaw is definitely my number 1.
Hell yeah.
Shaw was the first NPC that I that like really like hit the second mark for me, the hatred mark. Loving to Hate Shaw was a good point for me to like establish who Britta was and how she thought. And there's a couple other names on the hate list. Race is fun for that. I feel like that's a good general choice, but
Nobody likes that fucking guy.
nah, nobody likes. Rollins is fun for that.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, I'm really struggling with this question because I just adore too many of the NPCs. There's NPCs that I genuinely like, full on, just straightforwardly adore, like Ramirez and like Fester, and there's NPCs that just like uncomplicatedly fall into that category, but not necessarily as strongly as the NPCs who complicatedly fall into that category. Like my favorite trope for anything, like role-playing games, like books, like it does not matter the medium. I'm always here for the Cult of the Dark story. So the hate-love category is going to be my strongest category of NPCs. I mean, Pendragon, my sire, any NPC that would outstretch a hand with a knife behind it is going to be my favorite.
Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah. God, I fucking love Fester. I love Fester so much.
I actually wasn't present for a lot of the Fester scenes that we recorded leading up to the party.
Wow, that's great.
Because I think it was a rough day, and I just had to take a nap.
Yeah.
So I was checked out, and so hearing House of Wolves Part 2 was the first time I got to hear a lot of that, and it was great.
I
It was so good.
love Fester. Yeah. Ramirez also makes my list. Well, I'm a sucker for Hunter the Reckoning. I love the Imbued.
No.
Yeah, no shit. Like, and fucking Ramirez the Innocent. I mean, Lex, you and I have had that like big conversation about like the best innocent tropes, and just the innocent who's just like, hey guys, like, you guys doing okay? I brought a pizza. Like, fuck, he's so good.
There's actually a picture that comes to mind for Ramirez.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's in the Innocence book.
I know that picture. Yeah, with the window.
Yeah, it's basically this. It's this dude who's like heavy set and like a tank top, and he's just leaning at the windowsill, smoking a cigarette outside, and then perched beside him outside in a trench coat and looking as like gothed out as possible is his vampire friend, and it's just the two of them like hanging out at night shooting the shit. And I'm like, that's Ramirez.
Fuck yeah.
He's just
goddamn love Ramirez.
You may be a monster, but he really just sees a person and is like, hey, what's up? Do you like pizza?
Oh, I have to put Romeo on my list too, but I'm still mad at you for killing him immediately after saying hi.
Immediately.
That was such a
Glee
dirty
on
move.
your fucking face.
Immediately.
Such a dirty move. I love it.
Oh man.
I like it when it isn't even the first attack. He's like, this one vampire dies. Like, oh, look, he's still alive. Like, oh, now he's dead.
Man, he was on screen for so little, but I really liked Jubair. He just fucking died immediately.
So funny thing about you, Bayer,
Uh-oh.
is when we first introduced him and it was like recorded, I had a bunch of friends who were like, hey man, yo, Jubair's my favorite. I love this character. And they stop and they're like, Lex, please don't kill them. Please. And I'm like, I'll do my best. And like we had already, because that character was dead like weeks ago. And I was just like, oh no.
The rolls in that hotel room were so,
so
bad.
I gotta segue for a minute because actually one of the favorite NPCs.
Oh yeah.
But it's been so long since the recording that it feels like a long time ago. It was Marcos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Zophiel has to be on your love to hate list.
Yes and no.
And your love to love list.
I don't know how to feel about Zophiel yet. I feel like it's still a mystery. Like,
I mean, to be perfectly honest, there's such a great cast of NPCs in this game.
Miles respects the game though. So like he's like, okay, all right, I'm not into, you doing this to me. But like, okay, It's a good move. I understand the need to possess somebody to get dirty things done sometimes.
Gotta respect the player.
Okay.
Real fucking fast while we're talking about them.
Yeah.
One of the questions that we got was, how do you spell Z's name?
Z.
Thank you, Tim.
I don't know why I thought you were going to
I don't know.
contribute something there. Zofiel.
Yeah.
Yes, I wrote it down and I was correct.
I would have been the motherfucker that been like XOPH, you know?
So one more NPC we love to hate that has escaped all of our lists, and our listeners will
no,
not.
he's on mine.
Is he good? Say it.
So my love to hate more than any of the other NPCs is fucking shit, how am I blanking on his name now that I just goddamn had it?
It was so hard.
Vito.
hateable.
Yeah, Vito.
Vito Santos.
Vito Santosa. Dude,
All right, I'm going to say a spoiler. Vito's story is not over.
No
Of course
shit.
not.
Garrett was just talking about leaving your villains alive.
We don't
And
kill
like,
villains.
And like, it amused me to no end that you guys were like, "Oh my god, Vito's being horrible." I'm like, "Oh,
No,
this was
it's-
supposed to be the innocent, like,
yeah, I know.
not horrible version of Vito."
The like visible like, oh, this motherfucker, when he like was doing creepo shit on Britta, like the whole table was like, well, he's dying now, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna kill this guy.
We're gonna hand him over
We're gonna kill this man.
for torture.
I gotta respect his style in that particular
do
scene.
No,
not.
you do not.
I totally
not.
do.
Another
Yeah, he
compliment.
got a leather jacket.
Yeah,
He's
to
a
be fair.
bruja.
He was the fact that you brought him in with a leather jacket to denote he was a bruja is the funniest shit.
Yeah, but the thing is, he doesn't wear a biker jacket like a proper bruja. He wears one of those like weird, gross Euro trash leather jackets.
Oh yeah.
He's got
You know
a
what I
fur
mean?
collar.
Yep. Well, but it also had spikes on it.
Yep.
Yeah, but they're like the little weird, like
yeah,
flat,
no,
bedazzled
yeah, no,
studs.
Studs.
I was gonna say, are we sure they're not just like tiny metal nipples or something?
It's bedazzled into like a weird like sword with like wings on it and stuff like that, with like extra like embroidery.
Oh, so like
It's one of
Kabir's
those-
van.
Sire, do you like my tribal tattoo?
No,
It's sick.
Gotta respect the man.
Observe my kanji.
do not.
His fishnet shirt.
It means peace and war.
Motherfucker.
I hate that guy so much.
But yeah, a big up to Lex on this too, though.
Yeah.
Like hand in hand with leaving villains alive. I like it when you have a relationship with your storyteller where you can let your character be vulnerable and give yourself blind spots. And Lex is the kind of storyteller that knows how to take advantage of that, but like for dramatic reasons.
Not in like a mean.
Not in a
gosh,
mean,
fucking
you make
arrogant
you
way.
feel stupid,
Yeah.
which in turn makes you as a player feel more confident
More
in giving
comfortable taking
yourself
more risks.
Yeah.
to give more risks and give yourself more blind spots,
Yeah.
knowing
Yeah.
that it's going to make things more interesting for your people playing beside you and for the storyteller giving you awesome stories. So the fact that people are still alive, it's great.
Yeah, I want to speak to that because I was talking about like my favorite NPCs are all about like that Call to the Dark storyline, and I love dark, icky, gross shit. I love like I find it like really entertaining to like work with villains that on a scale of like threat from like Vito to Pendragon, obviously that covers topics that if you're not with a group of people that you can't communicate well with could be really difficult. And having a storyteller who cares, having a group that cares, being able and comfortable to like express yourself and feel heard and being able to check in with people. I mean, that's so incredibly important to like having these amazing NPCs and having these amazing stories.
Oh yeah. What about you, Lex? Who do you like portraying the most?
Ugh. Who do I like portraying the most?
Who do you like portraying the most? And who is so these are a couple of questions we got. Who do you like portraying the most, and who is the hardest for you to portray? Like, who are you just like, God, I have to bring this fucking character on screen, but like,
Okay, this is actually really, really good questions.
yeah, right.
I think so. As far as my favorite NPCs go,
Yeah.
my main three are probably Weathers, Elsa, and Reese.
Yeah.
I think those are kind of the three that you can have. I feel like I can have very long conversations with them and feel like there's kind of a dynamic exchange going more than most. the hardest, I would actually have to say Arabella is the most difficult for me because I'm trying to do two things at once every time I'm portraying the character, which is actually really hard for this table because you guys egg each other on, and it kind of causes sometimes a reaction to an NPC becomes infectious, and everyone's feeling it because this one person felt it. You know what I mean? Like, they picked on Neil, fuck them, we're all killing him. Like, shit. All right, this guy's done. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But so the thing with Arabella is I am trying to convey to Miles the whole speech of we're not so different, you and I,
Yeah.
right? While also being like, hey, I am blatantly a problem. You guys need to deal with me. So the rest of the coterie, and I'm trying to basically get Miles to be like, hey, guys, she's not so bad. And that is actually really difficult because Miles, more than, I'm going to be honest, any PC at the table, really just wants to fight something finally and like just have a throwdown.
Tim's audible
So, like-
disappointment when
I'm
at the end of
sorry.
season 2, right? The very finale of season 2 where like Wynn and Johnny are like, we're gonna go deal with Kabir, and Miles is like grabbing his fucking sword.
Yeah,
like, I'm
let's
gonna do
do
it. And Tim's like, yeah, we're gonna do it. And then you walk in with all the fucking princes, and Tim's like just,
Crestfallen.
I have to do prince stuff.
Oh,
Well, the
That's
episode
it.
where,
Arena fights.
the episode where Wynn accidentally one-shotted the abbot. Tim's just like,
Accidentally.
God dang it.
yeah, and I feel like
Yeah,
I feel like
accidentally. It's not
Arabella's
like I was
always
stacking
like
that.
one insult to a coterie mate from Miles being like, you know what? I've decided I'm not waiting for you to further enchant my sword. We're going now. And like, so like, I have to kind of walk this fine
That
line.
is also what
There's
she
definitely
said.
a couple NPCs. Arabella is one of them where like it. You're right. There's definitely infectious. Like, hey guys, fuck this guy, fuck this guy. But there's a few NPCs where like it kind of does split the table on how we look at them, and it's fucking good story.
I feel like Pendragon is becoming
Pendragon is one of them.
pretty good for that.
Yeah.
To some extent, Roland's was.
By one reason or another.
Yep.
But it's kind of one of those things where they are intended to be these kind of very honestly evil, self-serving characters. But sometimes the things that they want and the things that you guys want align. And when that happens, you guys are like, oh, maybe we'll kill Reese next game.
I mean, Reese. I think
Reese is a good example
Reese
of
is
that.
probably one of the best vampire villains I've ever encountered. He's not my favorite. Straw's my favorite, but Reese might just be the best I've ever actually seen portrayed in a game, because there's so many times we'll be talking about the game, you know, like after hours, stuff like that. And Reese he's just such a problem, and there's no good way to solve it. You can't you can't kill him because he's too essential for the domain, right?
Yeah.
And
He
the clan,
was.
no, he still is. The clan's still essential to the domain. And he is respectful enough of the rules where you can't just justify going after him.
Yep.
It's such, and bravo to you, Lex, for portraying that and
Yeah.
creating a domain that has that problem where, like, peripherally, like, there's just no good answer for that.
New Haven does, like, it'll transition this a little bit. New Haven does feel like very, you were talking about lived in world and all that kind of stuff. So some of the questions that we were getting, right, are like, why New Haven 99? Like, why?
That's all you.
So I can't reveal too much because some of the reasons I chose the time that I did are kind of packed with spoilers. Some of the things that I chose the timeline for have actually already happened. So like it's in 1999, the World of Darkness kind of changes, right? And I thought it'd be interesting and a good kind of trip down that nostalgia road to run a story set during a time when all of like the exciting things are really starting to kick up. And I chose New Haven. So for those who know, I do draw a bit from the Dark Colony sourcebook, from like, I think first or second, a very, very old vampire book, but had a lot of really interesting characters and concepts So I wanted somewhere that was a little more protagonisty than some of the others, and I thought New Haven would be a very interesting spot because it's between what's essentially, the territories controlled by Operation Longbow and the territories controlled by what would be one of the largest driving forces for the Sabbat. So it was a good spot to squeeze the PCs right in the middle of it, while also giving sanctuary to like the fires themselves. Like in the pan, not the fire. So that's why I wanted to do that. Because the idea was to give this whole nostalgia-oriented story about kind of an old-school feeling coterie, I felt V20 kind of offered something that I was most connected to in terms of my past experiences of the game. And a lot of you hadn't really done kind of a long-term Vampire the Masquerade tabletop game before.
No.
So,
Or for that matter, proper Camarilla tabletop.
Yeah.
Or Camarilla.
No, it's Camarilla.
No, it's Camarilla.
I can't even remember where I am on that.
You were on the Camarilla side.
You were on the Camarilla.
Is that the opposite of you?
They're
Yes.
they're
Yes, that's the
lying.
opposite of me.
They're
No,
lying.
I don't believe
On
it.
opposite day.
Damn it! I almost had him.
But yeah, so it was. I didn't want to just introduce the game in the world. I wanted to introduce my experiences with the game in the world, and I felt V20 most kind of represented that. So that's what I did. Yeah.
We had also talked about early on, right? Like, because we were doing something new with like podcasting and format and trying to do stuff, going back to the things that we knew the best and like were the most familiar with, so we could kind of shoot off a cuff and for a first time out, like don't stretch too hard, right?
Yeah, it was. Well, I mean, so I'd been running it for so long that it felt like something. It felt like something I knew I could do without needing to run to the rule book frequently. And if I needed to make a ruling off the top of my head, I could do something that was kind of close enough to where the way the game works that it wouldn't be this weird, odd mechanic being tacked onto the system.
So one of the questions we got from a few people, speaking of, was in our outro we talk about we have a few limited house
rules.
Do you want to talk about the house rules?
So there's a couple that are very unobtrusive, but there's a few that are really big. So in the system, normally when initiative gets rolled, everyone declares what they intend to do from slowest character to fastest. So if there's two characters fighting, one rolls a 12 initiative, the other one rolls a 15 initiative. The one that, after they determine who has what for initiative, the character with the lowest initiative actually says what they intend to do. And then the character who has the higher initiative can take that information into account when deciding what they will do. And then they announce what they intend to do. For the character that is going at the lower initiative, if they intend to change their action, they have to spend a point of willpower. So what I wanted to do was keep the combat flowing in a more narrative way and not be hyper focused on the nitty gritty of the fight itself. So I adopted the whole like style over substance, like, themes of some of the other games I've played, and was kind of, I removed the complexity of the initiative system and kind of kept it simple so that we could just all of your roles, all of your declarations, all of it should be focused on the action of the scene. So I feel that lends more to like a cool, stylish narrative combat scene. I mean, beyond that, there are some powers, some combination disciplines that I pulled from Revised that kind of made their way into things. Some of the character sheets for NPCs in the setting were actually from 2nd edition, so I had to kind of convert over in a bit of an approximation of where things would be in terms of power level. A lot of the really older character sheets use much less in the way of points than revised and V20 characters do. They kind of exponentially kind of grew in terms of like written mechanics. But it's a lot of that. Whenever there's a house rule, it's intended to kind of keep things moving. I tend to feel like in a tabletop, or especially in a LARP, speed kills. Any choice you can make to make the scene move faster and have more of the memorable moments be focused on the things that actually people describe and roleplay, the better your combat scene is.
Unobtrusive was a good word for that. I think all of your house rules are definitely things that just make it more intuitive, and just if you're not paying attention, you don't notice.
Speaking of like sheets and mechanics and updating and stuff, one of the questions we got a couple of times is, would we ever consider releasing either like some prep notes for people to see, or like actual like screen caps, or rather like pictures of our character sheets? I am wildly against this, only because mine looks like a Malkavian's sheet, but like for real. It's fucking unreadable.
By this, she means that he's so interested.
I doodle on my sheet while I'm listening to scenes a lot, so I have a lot of things in my margins.
I've got like weird notes in the margins.
Oh no, I just have like shapes. I have lots of shapes everywhere.
I think I spilled like a drink on part of mine at one point.
Wasn't it like
I
the
have a
first
requisite Chinese food stain on my sheet,
Yeah.
so it's good to show.
I actually had planned on scanning these sheets at one point early on, and then completely forgot.
No, we just didn't do it. maybe at one point we can like scan them.
So-
and do all that kind of
I
stuff.
did take a picture of Samantha Pratt's sheet that I was thinking of uploading to Twitter at one point.
Samantha with a C.
Samantha with a C. Oh, it's Samantha with a C, hon, and it ends with an E.
Do you know what else starts with a C? Coincidence.
So I have character sheets for PCs that I played when I was like 19.
Damn.
And it's not like one or two. Like I have almost all of them, which is weird because I am horrible about losing other people's character sheets from the Storyteller game. But for like, I have like when Werewolf the Forsaken first came out, I have the character sheet of the very first Werewolf the Forsaken character.
I saw those.
Yeah, like I have an Exalted character sheet where a friend of mine from high school had drawn character art on the back, and I still have that.
That's awesome.
And I usually don't show people all of the details of my character sheet until the character has died.
It makes sense.
And I think in this case,
I think it's smart.
because if we're going to be honest, this is a pretty dangerous game, and you guys have lucked out a long way.
Yeah.
Yes, we have.
But the third season's coming. And should we lose someone, should
when we can
a
post it.
character meet final death, I think that's when I will be comfortable with them revealing their character sheet.
Doing it
That's
with a
super
memorial. I think that's a very cool idea.
I don't think otherwise we'd ever be able to release an accurate sheet too, because I mean we get XP every session, we like build, we there's a lot of reasons that the sheets kind of change as well.
Yeah. They grow and they reflect the flow of the story, but when the story ends, I think that's when it's okay
To pull back the curtain.
It's a very cool way to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't want to share my prep work either. I mean, I'm literally looking at the 6 pages of notes that I took when I was nervous about.
Right when Britta got kidnapped.
That I want on Twitter
now.
ASAP.
All of it.
Yeah, I want
Publish all of Rebecca's like. What am I gonna
I
do?
want all of Rebecca's Pendragon notes.
Someone's going to have to put a lot of motive there for me to release
Did you see that the post that Garrett's sister Sarah had posted about how the interaction was giving Anita Blake vibes?
So
Oh, no.
somehow, despite who I am as a person, I've never read that series.
You're fine.
I don't. I unfortunately I had no context for that, but what I
So it is obviously like a very like sexual kind of smutty novel series.
Kind of.
And and in it there are a lot of blurred lines for antagonist / romantic interests. And Roman Pendragon is very much a like, it is unclear as to like what he's about in terms of like his interactions with.
I hate this man so much.
Part of the reason, so I'm joking about. I mean, I'm not joking. There are literally 6 pages of notes in front of me, but I said that I love dark. I like dark romance. I like questionable antagonists. It's a favorite category for me. But I was so nervous about being able to like portray like flirting or portray like that questionable line and like strategies and like how Britta might respond to it, that I spent a lot of time like exploring like how she as a Toreador, as someone who like has a lot of like grace and mystique and like ability, would like operate in the space.
How many hours have we spent talking about like just the podcast in general, but like, oh my god, what are we gonna do?
A lot.
Same, actually. I talked to Rebecca tons about the interactions, and it was. I feel that it gave the effect that I was looking for. Right, friend of ours, Adam, who was mentioned a few times. When he listened to the episode, he reached out to me and was like, "Oh my God, Pendragon is so gross. I hate him so much." Also, so you're like running this LARP set in Boston. You should totally bring Pendragon into that. I think the games need more of that. And it was, and I was like, all right, I think it's
working.
This is having the intended effect.
Yeah, if you ever want those notes to hit the real world, there's going to have to be some serious motivation behind that desire.
Or just a lot of one-shot fanfics.
How many donations a month do we need for the like?
I'm not telling. Someone's going to have to figure it out.
Just steal a note.
Yeah,
We
I
got
kind of want like Pendragon to absolutely come across as like the villain of a fanfic.
Oh God,
You know what I mean?
That's 100%. As someone who reads and writes a lot of fanfics, you hit it.
Good.
You hit that.
Yeah, no.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm not.
Pendragon is engorged with fanfic vibes.
All right, next question.
See what I mean? Like Tim's already done with this guy. Like that.
move on.
What was it? That Dracula motherfucker.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, that Phantom of the Opera motherfucker.
Oh, so good. That's actually like, so one of the questions we get a couple of times, I'm just gonna fucking piggyback off the weird fanfic and Anita Blake shit.
I do have to ask.
Okay.
You did a great job.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yes,
Like
100%.
it does need to be said that the interactions were absolutely great, and I just based on the reactions I was seeing on Twitter, everyone was like, "Oh my god, what's Britta gonna do?"
Yeah.
This is
fuck yeah.
Honestly,
The amount
good.
of all caps, I think I mentioned one of. So we talked about like people live stream or live tweet like their reactions to the episodes, and some of those episodes drop and just like the all caps, like
Yeah, even when it was happening, I distinctly recall Garrett and Erika watching, and Garrett be like, "Okay, do the thing now. More, yes, continue."
I'm going to talk about that real quick.
yes,
So the way that happened in like real life is that we ended a recording session with Lex running the summoning to the limo. And then because of many factors, COVID safety, some other health concerns, things coming up personally, we didn't record for 2 months. Mm-hmm. So I had just like, that's part of when I mentioned like my nerves and that sort of thing, which I was really lucky like that people were A, willing to hear me out and be supportive there, and B, tolerant of me not shutting the fuck up. But there was like 2 months of, "Hey, you've been kidnapped. Wonder about it."
Yeah, I was so smug making you ponder about it. It's like, for 2 weeks, she's going to wonder what's going to happen next. And then it kept going, and I just started feeling bad.
two quick things. That kidnapping scene, there was legitimately a thunderstorm outside that I think you can
Carried
barely.
over across
It
the
didn't.
mics.
It sort of did. It didn't really come across in the final edit.
We reacted to it
but
in the,
like-
in the episode.
It was in the
but-
raw audio, I promise, but it didn't make it through the filters.
But just so y'all know out there, like we're having a normal gaming session, and then the second Pendragon shows up, it's legitimately like thunder and lightning outside.
Yep.
So like Lex would say something, and we'd hear the like crack of thunder.
Lex would not just say something. I remember distinctly there was like two
Roman
different times where he would
Pendragon.
say the name Pendragon and it would thunder outside.
It was so good.
Yeah,
so good.
motherfucker.
And then the other thing too is just all of that Pendragon scene, just incredibly well done, because I think objectively, not a lot physically like happens, right? Like it's kind of a subdued thing, but my God, you guys in an audio medium managed to make that whole thing so intense and dripping with just like, oh my God, she tilted her head. Like, it's very good, very good.
Used the sword to tip
Fucking
her chin.
sword chin. Erica was fucking vibrating through
Yeah.
reality when that
Yeah.
shit was happening.
It's something at this table, like that scene and a bunch of other scenes, like getting the energy and getting the hype from everyone here. Like I when I get nervous, I've got this bad habit of basically putting on like blinders to the sides of my eyes and just focusing on Lex. But when I can get past that, and I know that like this is something that rings true for other people at this table, that like feeling just that energy and love for your character is so motivating to like
Yeah.
contributing story and putting your own details forth.
One of the questions we got a bunch of times, we could just sort of wrap these into each other, I think, are like, what are some inspirations for your characters? Like, what inspired your characters a little bit? And then, additionally, talking about all the fanfic and stuff, what's the table's like favorite pieces of vampire media? That's not us.
That's not
Yeah,
us.
I actually can answer this one for me
Yeah.
pretty easily. So Johnny Saxon, the character was actually lifted from a parlor character that I had created and ran for like just a couple months. But I really loved the concept for it. I wanted to do more. I think he was originally an anarch. And he wasn't as well fleshed out as Johnny the podcast was, but I think Lex was like, do that Bruja. And I did, and I think it's been a lot of fun. But I wanted the classic biker jacket, like, I mean, in all the old art for 90s Bruja, he's just like a dude wearing a t-shirt with like jeans and a biker jacket. Like, it's the same fucking Bruja everywhere, right? Cheesy looking dude in the Met book, right? You know what I'm talking about? And for my own inspiration in outside of that, like, I think I showed you the music video for "Killed by Death" by Motorhead, where Lemmy just crashes a motorcycle through a wall to grab like this floozy on the back of his bike, and just they drive off, and you know. If you've never seen it, check out that music video. And then in terms of actual like vampire media, I think my favorite vampire film is Near Dark, and Bill Paxton in Near Dark, who's totally a Sabbat member, but if anything, but that character there is a lot of inspiration for how I want Johnny to be if he was a good guy, right? Like that's the Near Dark vampire that Bill Paxton plays is if Johnny continued with the Sabbat and went down a dark road. I'm imagining if the character tried to cling to his humanity and was trying to figure out how to actually do that. But I think that's probably the big inspiration for him.
Oh, yeah.
What, me? Who else is here? No. The character inspiration it kind of speaks a little bit more to my process, where I don't start with a character most of the time. I fill roles in a group. Mm-hmm. So I have a tendency to pick a bunch of roles after everybody else has to figure that out, and then I kind of just morph into a character after a certain point.
all of us sat down. We're like, we need a leader.
I mean, I'm always willing to do that. Take charge and tell you people what to do. Perfect.
Our straight man.
Like we do in real life.
Yeah.
Thank you for scheduling everything, Tim.
Our grump.
The character and everything else is very much the guy in the glasses 90s anime vibes.
Yes.
Like wow.
Put glasses on Virgil.
Yeah, blue.
Yeah, just
There is definitely some Virgil vibes, but I actually didn't realize that till much later. I was like, oh,
That just makes sense because Virgil's blue Oni,
yeah, 100%.
which is that.
You playing Blue Oni to Johnny's Red Oni.
and
More fan art.
Yes, please.
the accent and talking just came about. It just came. I don't know where it came from. It just existed.
Was it like rich guy transatlantic,
Yeah,
like
semi weird transatlantic. I don't know. I start a character and it just happens. And in terms of vampire media, mildly unconventional, John Wick.
John Wick is such a good cam story. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yep.
The underworld in John Wick is quite possibly one of my favorite depictions.
I don't know if that's ever been said explicitly, but it's gotta
Oh
be
my
the
god!
case,
Watch
right?
watch
The
the
writers-
sequels. There's no way.
Yeah, the writers had to know what they're doing, right?
Maybe. I don't know.
They exchange boons and like
It's if you need a good primer, it's John Wick and some great action scenes with Keanu Reeves. So it's like a
Why'd you-
double win.
How did you end up playing the Ventrue? Because he's your first Ventrue that you ever played, right?
I mean, in reality, it's like my first real vampire that I've played for.
We played like Requiem and stuff together.
You also were in an indie game with me where you played a Nos.
So yeah, I mostly played Nosferatu actually.
He was the goddamn Batman, and it was amazing.
Why? I think we there was the list, and we're like, here's these other ones, and I'm like, yeah, let's do Ventrue. Fuck it.
All I remember about you playing a Ventrue is that you're like, yeah, we'll play a Ventrue, and then like we got 2 sessions in, and we're like, how has Tim never played a fucking Ventrue
Right.
before? This is insane.
I remember getting 2 sessions in, and Tim was like, "This is really difficult," and I'm like, "What's going on, man? You all right?" And Tim's like, I can just look at someone and have whatever I want. And I think I'm getting drunk on power. And
I've had to establish some rules.
and I was so fucking proud. I was like, oh my God, I went straight to his head. He's ready. He is playing adventure.
Trying to Ventrue it.
Dominate is a hell of a drug.
So I don't think I made a conscious choice to base Wynn off of anything. I generally have a few archetypes that I go to. Wynn is definitely a more combat-heavy version of the Bog Witch that I enjoy playing. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, she is kind of a combination of Imperator Furiosa and Wolverine
Yeah.
and Morrigan from Dragon Age.
So good.
I was like, those are two of the same characters.
Right? And then
man.
any inspiration, I will admit that I watched Underworld long before I got into Vampire, and when someone was saying, oh, have you ever seen Underworld? And I said yes, and they said, yeah, they got sued by World of Darkness because for copyright infringement. So I said, oh, okay, so I have an idea of what this is supposed to be like. But in retrospect, Wynn is basically if a vampire was raised by the werewolves in Underworld.
The lichens.
Yep.
They're hairless.
That's awesome.
Gross.
No, they're not. Just
lichens?
Just the one was.
They were mostly that way. Like
No.
most of them were
Oh my God,
terrible.
Okay, all right.
we can't argue about
We're not
We
doing
can.
this. We're not doing
We
this.
can, but
again.
we won't.
Not yet,
again.
anyways. Not yet.
I can answer the second more quickly. My favorite growing up, my favorite vampire franchise, Kim Harrison's The Hollows or Dead Witch Walking series was huge for me. Yeah. And obviously that's multi-genre for the people who know about it. The main character is a witch, but there's also very quickly the introduction of vampires and how sort of different supernaturals interact. And I mean, it was, to this day, it still shapes how I think about how a vampire chooses to take blood. There's some discussion in those books about how you bodily consent and, like how that does not apply and does apply to blood, and I just found that to be a wonderful world, and that stuck with me. Sort of to bridge the two ideas of like my favorite mediums and inspiration for the character. I don't think I've ever made a character for any mildly any LARP or tabletop that has dark themes. I am Evanescence is playing a role in my imagination. It's been my it's and that's been a band that's been so close to my heart. I literally my poor patient mother would play the Fallen CD every single day for years when I was in elementary school.
Oh no!
God, no!
Elementary school.
Oh, that came out. I think
why did you bring that up?
I would have been
It was like
third grade?
03.
Yeah, third grade, I think.
I can't.
dust. I turned
My
to dust
vertebrae
inside.
just collapsed.
All right. I'm sorry,
Junior
I'm sorry.
year.
I'm just gonna move on really quickly. So, character inspirations. No, I mean, I'm gonna stick on that for a bit and just talk about like the love for that band. Like that really, like that was my introduction to like goth culture and to like alternative music, and that like pulled me into like this arena and will always remain like so close to my heart and imagination. And then specifically for Britta, Ophelia from Hamlet is. So when you learn to act for doing Shakespearean voice for Shakespeare, obviously, but like you take out of your own voice like your accent, the different affectations, your poor vocal habits, you kind of like pull it back to a blank, and the combination of that practice with the reality of Ophelia as a character who has to navigate like a court and nobility and like the powerful people around her with a certain degree of like grace, helplessness, and depending on your interpretation, whether or not she loses her mind. For me, that was a character that was very helpful in constructing who Britta might be.
For Neil, Neil is the second 13th generation Malkavian with an anxiety disorder who has a 4-letter name that starts with N that I've played in the last few years.
Very specific.
It is.
It wasn't even on purpose. I just
The Venn diagram between those characters is a circle.
when we started playing, right? Like when we started, like Lex, you had a list of like the things that we wanted to see, and we wanted to stick with the main clans and do all that kind of stuff. I have. Malkavians are a weird clan because, like, a lot of people don't like Malkavians.
But then the people who do
But
love
then there
them.
are people who love Malkavians.
Yeah.
And I'm one of those people who really likes Malkavians. A lot. But I have a very particular, like, a particular style of Malkavian that I like to play that I don't see a lot, right? Like, I remember talking to you early on, Lex, about, like, being nervous playing Nick. Playing Neil. Playing Neil.
Yep.
Because like the most famous Malkavian is was it Jeanette from Bloodlines? And like the like I'm crazy sexy Malkavian is like the one that gets popular a lot. And the one that I like to do is like I have a real mental disorder and I'm not doing okay and like the shit's fucked but I'm still I don't know, there's just like I love Malkavians, but I have a way that I like to play Malkavians, and I was worried that they would not come across well when I was playing Neil.
Do you mind if I prompt you on this?
Yeah.
You talk a lot about how you love Malkavians who prove something true. Like Malkavians that speak to like
so
does that
the way that I look at Malkavians and their derangements, right, is and I think I've said this in character as Neil when I was talking about Roland's going nuts. When you are crazy or like have a derangement, right? Malkavians aren't like there's all sorts of weird, horrific, like Lovecraftian, chthonic shit going on with Malkavians all the time. But when it's expressed as derangements and things like that, like to me, there is a kernel of truth. Like, they're at the core of a Malkavian is a flawed premise, and then you just like there is something fundamentally wrong with how they see the world, or right, depending on how you look at it. And then all the rest of their shit just builds off that one thing.
Yeah,
so
fundamentally different.
If you
about how they
take
view the
if you
world.
take one flawed premise of like a kernel of, you know, truth or untruth or whatever, about how they see the world, and then you build everything out from there. So like Neil's derangement technically is like obsessive compulsive hoarding, right? Like that's his deal, but it's all built out of anxiety and like a need to order the world and control the world around him. Like, and you know, it's not on screen a ton, but I remember like Wynn walking in and being like, "Oh shit, he's gonna fucking die in a fire," because like he will
or
be
under a pile of
he
magazines.
will be buried under a pile of magazines and die. Like, he's normally pretty okay. Like, he's an anxious guy, but like he's usually pretty okay. But like,
He's never okay, but he masks well.
yeah, he masks well, exactly. So I don't know. I like Malkavians. I like Cassandra syndrome. His obsession with the moon and like stars actually predates the Duranki. I know we talk about that a little bit, but like, I came up with Neil and he had no real Assamite connections or Duranki or anything like that. And we were driving back one day and you were like, "Hey man, I want like, there's some stuff on the list that hasn't been ticked yet, and I think it would be very cool if we did this like Duranki thing, like going underneath in the Assamite connections." And it clicked into Neil's like pre-existing, like, it's not his derangement, he just likes astronomy, and all that kind of stuff. So like, I don't know, it was fun to play. That was his like inspirations for that kind of stuff.
Real quick, just because we've mentioned it a couple of times, there, when we were creating characters, there was a list that was kind of like an a la carte menu
Yeah.
that Lex put in front of us as a storyteller and said, "Hey guys, these are, you know, I want you to create your own characters, but throughout that process, I want you guys to make sure that all of the items on this list are checked amongst you.
Yeah.
So share the load and incorporate these ideas and concepts." And they were very vague and they were very loose. They didn't really spoil anything.
No.
They were just kind of like, okay, so here's an interesting thing I can incorporate into this character. And we kind of worked as a team to make sure that we had an even spread.
Everything was covered.
I think that was a great little addition to character creation.
Yeah,
but that's when we keep mentioning the list, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah. As far as vampire media and whatever, my favorite vampire story straight up is Let the Right One In. Like the original Let the Right One In, from is it Swedish, Norway, whatever. It's a very good movie. The original one, like, I love that fucking vampires. It's that right level of like sad and creepy and like emotionally fraught that like I really like in vamp. That's the kind of vampire
it
that
definitely
I like.
hits the notes that I think you really like.
Those are the vampire notes I like a lot. Like, and so yeah, I fucking love Let the Right One In. Real quick roundtable, because we sort of talked about it and we vaguely mentioned it when we were talking about it. What's everybody's favorite clan?
Toreador.
Salubri.
Malkavian for me.
But Gangrel is a pretty close second, and Malkavian.
It's a toss-up for me between Ravnos and Bruja.
I don't really know. I wouldn't have said Ventru before I started playing this character, but it's definitely Ventru and Nas still.
Hell yeah. What about you, Lex?
I am forever split between three.
I think
I think you're lying. Okay.
It's truly it's three that I love, and which one is my
Okay.
favorite changes almost
Depending
every
on the
day.
day.
I have two predictions. I don't know who the last one
I
is.
think I know the three, but I
Okay,
don't know.
all right. What are your predictions?
Lasombra. Bruja.
Gargoyle.
Do you want me to give the guess?
We're all gonna guess.
We're all gonna guess?
before he
All right.
says.
I'm gonna say Assamite.
What do you think, man?
I think it's Lasombra, Assamite, and Toreador.
Lasombra, Assamite, Bruja. That's my guess. I'm the same with Erika.
Yeah, all right, big same.
I feel very solid about Lasombra. Bruja, Toreador.
Samba, Bruja, Ventru. Probably not, but I'm doing different anyways.
Erika was right.
Yeah.
That's my three.
Hell yeah.
Which ones was it?
It is La Sombra, Assamite, and Bruja.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
And those are kind of the three clans that I tend to, I don't know, resonate with. You
Yeah.
know, like those are.
You
That said, I
like the
super
dark
love
hero.
Toreador.
Yeah.
I love that clan so much. And I'm
Us
very
going
picky
back
about
and
it.
forth between Asma and Toreador.
Well, like, yeah, because it's funny. So I think Toreador I don't like stand out to me more, and I get
Yeah.
mad about it.
So
I get that.
I have opinions on this.
But like,
Toreador version of the fish mold.
but when I like,
Oh,
but
God,
when
fucking
it's a
fish mouth.
Toreador that I really like, I'm like, all right, that's a great
Yeah.
concept right there.
I love playing. So part of why I love Toreador so much is, to me, they give this like really unique opportunity to work with like art and beauty and humanity in a way that like you can really explore what those concepts mean to a character and like put a focus on like their perception of those ideals and like what they mean on a personal level and how they explore that. And that makes me just not take an interest in posers. I'm sorry. I don't like... And poser Toreador can be like the coolest NPCs, and I've seen them be cool NPCs as well. Like, I don't want to knock anything off the options, but I love like actual artists Toreador who like really like thoughtfully navigate the world. That's the thing that I love about them, is like that like the glue of the Camarilla and that concept of like how they help others see themselves and how they see themselves in others. And
I tend to see Toreador as like the quintessential vampire, right? And so like the main three movies that come to mind for like vampire has some version of a Toreador in it, right? So and it's funny because these are very different movies. So like The Lost Boys has Star, who in my mind is like such a Toreador character.
Absolutely.
Who is super, super interesting. Or like Interview with the Vampire Lestat is like the Toreador to me. Who is, again, wildly different from Star, but still to me just very much a Toreador. And then Blade, which is of course is going to be like part of my like
those are the three.
But like Deacon, the bad guy, right? Deacon has this like right hand, and her whole thing is she is just snide and like says cruel things and is just this super deadly combatant. And is just this very dangerous character. And to me, she always had like this white fur going on and like tons of eyeliner. And when I think of a Toreador anti-tribu, that is what I see so much that I used her description in the New York scene when Johnny ran into a member of the Sabbat.
Candy?
Is that who she was based on?
That's who she was based
That
on.
makes so much sense.
Yep, that tracks.
So that is how like my weird love for Toreador, and also Byzantium is to me a story about two wildly different Toreador, because the mother and daughter are very interesting and artistic in their own ways, but are just super at odds with each other because they're just very different people. So I do also like Toreador.
Lex, what's your proudest moment as a storyteller over the course of the podcast?
Ooh, pick your favorite child.
Oh, that's brutal.
What's your favorite Neil moment? No.
What's your favorite moment? Why is it with Neil?
No, it's a really good question that somebody sent in. It was like, what is your proudest moment? It was so good. I'm gonna look it up. So I can't remember.
Ooh. So most of my like really proud moments are when I get the reaction from you guys that I'm really looking for, and when you guys go way overboard, like when it's more of what I wanted than I was even like hoping that I might get.
Yes.
And so like it's very hard to narrow it down, but for example, I wanted you guys to be intimidated by the Sabbat, want to fight the Sabbat, but I also wanted you guys like, man, those guys are fucking cool. And in the scene at the Dunkin' Donuts when
Yeah.
Fucking love Dunkin' Donuts.
Johnny's fucking black hand sire presses his palm to the window and all of that. And I remember the characters that were there were like, one PC is firmly like, I think we should run, but I'm down for whatever. And then another character's like, I think we should fight, but I'm down for whatever. And the other character's like, bisexual confusion. And like,
Yes.
Dude, my
and
sire.
that felt great.
My sire is so cool. Like that is like the brouhaha that I
he's
would
so
love to
cool.
make, but I'm like, that's too over the top. I can't do that. I'm not.
Dude, his horde form
He's-
still has dope hair.
Yeah.
He's too over the top for that to be a possible character I could play.
Yeah.
And then Lex is just like, yeah, he's just casually like this. I'm like, motherfucker did it. He's getting away with it too. Man.
He's
I
in my
could've
favorite
gone to
NPC
11.
category.
Yeah, Delgado's
I still
great.
couldn't. I still could not play Delgado. Lex, 100%. You could just casually play Delgado. It's fucking infuriating.
I loved, speaking of like us reacting to shit, like we were talking about like how much fucking time Rebecca and I spent talking about like what the fuck are we gonna do with this party at the fucking gala? We're gonna die. Like just and the moment when you turned it raw horror with Carmen upstairs.
Yeah.
Where it was like, hey, this
That
is
was
a
awesome.
scary action scene. And then Lex was like, no, it isn't. This is a horror scene. Yes, it was scary action, and you guys should be tense and afraid. Now it's fucking horror. Scramble, motherfucker. And like, just that quiet voice
Squirm.
of the dark. Like, oh, God. I fucking love Carmen.
Lex does this
so hot.
amazing thing for getting. She is fucking smoking, but you do this great thing where when you're describing an NPC, you give hooks into the reactions that you want.
Yeah.
So like when the Sabat were showing up at the Duncan, and you just I remember you describing like little things like the flip of Delgado's hair, the spurs, and like Carmen's lip liner, and like
Yep.
Yeah.
you give these like little details that like really sell so many things at once. Like you usually get to like the danger of it, you usually get to the sexiness of it. Like you hit that really well, man. I don't
Yeah, it's really fucking good, man.
you say that like that's a moment that you're proud of, but you should be like
Before we
More proud.
Yeah.
before we all go off all on the rails, are there any other storyteller moments that you
Yeah.
Oh,
really
yeah.
are really proud of that you want to highlight?
Oh man. So one of them actually didn't happen on screen, and it was very early on. Didn't actually happen in a recording. But as a storyteller, I was like, this is beautiful. So I was like introducing Vampire to you guys and be like, hey guys, some political intrigue and like what's Shaw up to? What are the mysteries of this, this weird Xantosa guy? And I remember it was during COVID, right? And so like hanging out was very difficult. And we had worked out this whole little system where we get like little cubes in a parking lot. Remember that?
Yes.
We'd hang out and like, so I remember showing up.
10 feet away from each of us,
Yeah.
standing in a circle.
It's just everyone like way off apart from each other in
Yeah.
their own like little worlds. But I
good
remember
projection
showing up
exercise.
to Tim and Garrett yelling at each other.
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, and it wasn't like, well, I think no. They were like going at it, and I'm like, what the fuck is happening? And I go to like check on my friends, and I stand like my 10 feet apart, and I'm like, I'm listening, and I'm like, oh my God, they're arguing about what they should do in the tabletop game, arguing about fucking politics. And Garrett and Tim, who like had never seemed super enthused with the idea of like a camera like coterie. The two of them were just all in, and the thing was like I was like a half hour late, and I knew that like no, these guys had been. This was the half hour. They're a half hour deep.
That has not been the only time that we have like really like been like I think I can remember distinctly at least 3 different times we've been in a parking lot arguing to the freaking hilt about what we should do politically in the game.
We are diametrically opposed in some
and
ways.
then-
And how do we handle politics?
What made me proud because one, it means that you guys have spent a lot of time thinking about what was
Yeah.
going on and what you guys needed to do. And I also really liked that the argument was never like, well, I'm going to take care of this. No, it was always like, hey guys, we as a coterie are going to need each other in order for any of this to work.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? And while conceptually, right, the books say that kindred is supposed to be kind of like these selfish creatures, I do tend to feel that PCs are supposed to be an exception to an extent, where instead of a vampire being like, no, it's all about me, the coterie is supposed to be like, hey, it's us against the world. Everyone we interact with has an agenda. Everyone we interact with wants to use us for something. We are the only people that we can count on each other for to have a human experience.
Yeah.
And I loved the idea as even as you guys like started to descend and lose humanity and start making darker and darker choices, you guys are always like, you know, no matter what happens, it's still us against the world. And that theme kind of carrying through is something I'm very, very proud of. And I love any scene that reflects with that. I think if I had to pick, and it's very difficult, if I had to pick a number one, it would be the reaction of the coterie to Marcos dying.
Yeah.
I feel like in a very interesting way, each of the characters kind of really shined, and I had no NPCs in that scene.
No.
Everything that had happened in that scene on my end already happened before the scene started. So it was literally me just creating an environment and being like, hey guys, react. And it felt really cool to kind of try to storytell a scene in that way. And I feel like it really worked out.
I mean, to your point, I mean, to be as objective and like, you know, clinical about this as possible, Marcos was just a 1 point retainer on your sheet or something like that. Like,
Just a 1 point retainer.
no, but
How dare you?
But that's
How
exactly it, though.
dare-
but that's my point though, right? Like literally, like it's if you look at like a character sheet for any tabletop, what's the most important thing on there? You're not gonna say, oh, this, you know, however many point little background that you've got. But holy shit, that I mean, I think we're all still traumatized from the fact that the Tremere had the audacity to freaking kill Marcos. Like, that's insane.
Yeah, if we weren't going to kill Reese before, we're absolutely going to end him
And that's,
in every plane of existence.
I'm still not entirely sure if it was him.
Well, it doesn't matter.
I think that's a really great takeaway too. Like I forget who was pointing that out in the scene, but I remember we highlighted that of like, you know, I think I remember I was saying like, you're the most powerful Ventrue in the city, and it's very clear that this could be a very good political move to pin this on Reese.
I'm also
it's
not
very easy.
entirely unconvinced that it wasn't Zofield.
Zoviel is doing some shit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, there's a bunch of questions there still, right?
Right.
Like, hey, who is he drinking whiskey with? Like, there's some fucking...
It was
I
me.
think
He was drinking whiskey with me.
I think he poured it and left it for for
Is
Miles
that
to
what it
come
was?
back to.
Yeah.
That was interesting. That was not the
That's
impression
what-
I
yeah,
got.
that
I
was
thought
the-
there was
my
another-
interpretation
I
of
thought
that,
there
too.
was another person in the room.
We do this all the time.
We do
okay?
this all the time.
well,
and Lex
I thought
just sits
this
there with that
happened.
fucking smug-ass smile on his face that he's got right now. As we all fucking...
You had no NPCs in that scene, and you had laid such good groundwork that
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
we reacted so viscerally and hurt by the loss of something that most games would see as an inconsequential part of the character sheet, right?
It was very fucking cool. So sort of talking about that, right? One of the other questions we got was like, hey, what are, you know, we were talking about favorite story moments, character moments and stuff, but moving it into like moving in the room, what are some favorite, and this is not just for Lex, this is for everybody to jump in. What are some favorite player moments for each other?
Well, it's the Ventrue. I would like to talk about my moments.
Sure.
No, I'm kidding.
No, well, so legitimately, like piggybacking off of that, your reaction to Marcos' death and like Miles, that's the first time we actually see Miles unbuttoned a little bit. Like even when he's fighting the like even when you guys were fighting the werewolf, even when like you were dealing with the Shaw shit, Miles was always buttoned up to a certain degree and like was in control of himself. So just seeing Miles and like your reactions to all of that. And, like, Miles just coming out in, like, a fucking bathrobe and just being like, oh, I don't know. And, like, walking off and, like, being that not okay in front of everybody was like a very cool choice to show that level of like vulnerability. I thought it was a fucking very cool moment, Tim.
Thank you. I actually really enjoyed the sacrifice of the bull scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of I don't know why it particularly hit me. Maybe it was just a juxtaposition to a lot of the rest of the game they were going, but it was definitely more of the weird, magical, supernatural that we hadn't touched upon. And it was a really rather just kind of a cool scene in general that, I don't know, maybe also hit on the Werewolf the Apocalypse roots that me and Lex shared. But and just the way that you leaned into the weird blood ritual thing that I would have been like, yeah, well, we just performed some magic and we got this shit done.
Yeah, thanks. I like, no, legitimately, one of the things I was going for a lot of like the Duranki blood sorcery is like, yo, it's blood sorcery. Like, we're gonna do some horrible shit. Like, this shit's awful.
Yeah.
Like, thank you.
I know my moments actually pretty immediately for once I have this question. Wynn, my favorite moment with Wynn is the introduction scene in the bathroom between her and Britta, where Wynn just pulls Britta aside and says what we are and how being a monster is like a choice is really defining to who Wynn is and how much of a like mama bear she is and like how she navigates this world. For Miles, my favorite moment is Arabella's seduction.
Yes.
My favorite moment is Arabella's seduction because
Which one?
Just the whole thing.
christening Roland's office.
Oh,
The
culmination. You would like.
yeah. I love that.
Climax scene.
No. More subtle. Less you, more me.
You suck dicks.
Classic.
I love that scene because, I mean, first of all, it's dramatic as hell. But for you as a role player, I think that, like, I feel like you have shown so much growth in, like, how comfortable you are to portray, like, I don't know, Miles is sexy, as Fester says. And I think that, like, at first you maybe were a little hesitant on that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, like, to me, showed, like, you really growing into that and, like, being comfortable with it.
Thanks. Also,
Pretty
we gotta
important
listen
part of
to
Miles.
Yeah.
It is.
Gotta listen to Fester. I mean, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
Fester's my next note. For Neil, I mean, there's Erika and I giggling so much during the Fester scenes, I think proves the point on this one. Just like those scenes were incredible for a variety of reasons, but you had a rough time with Neil's loss of humanity.
Yeah.
And I think because you started off with Neil conceptually at 8 humanity.
It
Yeah.
was an 8.
And-
Neil conceptually was very high.
Where's he at now?
It was 4.
2.5?
I just bought it back up between
my
seasons.
God.
4? You dropped to 4?
I dropped a 4.
Yeah,
Double
Neil
botch.
and Wynn both dropped to 4.
Yeah, but every time you lost humanity, you double botched. And to
Yeah.
me, those
Yep.
scenes represent, like, you taking that as a role-playing problem and you, like, dealing with it in a way that felt very true to character. I have 2 choices for Johnny. One is very selfish, and the other one just is true. The one that's just true is you, Kool-Aid Manning. I can't not mention it, but my selfish favorite is after Britta got a bit more information about who she was, I got into the truck and Johnny gave her a leather jacket. And to me, that just so quickly encapsulated, like, Johnny as a father, Johnny as someone who, like, takes the time out to think about the people in his family and his coterie and, like, express to them that they're a part of him. So, like, especially at that kind of vulnerable moment. So, those are my picks.
I have such a hard time picking one for because what I just keep coming back to is how fucking good everybody's introduction to the series was.
Yeah.
Like, just, we roll up on Britta, who is babe in the woods and, just doesn't realize how powerful she actually is yet. And knowing that we start there and every big step she took along there and all the steps back that it took, was such a cool journey to watch. Neil, you popped on screen and we all collectively were just like, fuck, what are you doing?
It's so fun.
But he didn't stop at just being the creepy jump scare guy. You know, he evolved, in that bull scene where Wynn realized she couldn't protect him was such a fucking huge moment for both of them.
Yeah.
And then Johnny like stumbling upon this girl, and just so much was said with his reaction to it. Just how much he immediately cared so much that it hurt him. And then Miles is just like, I guess this is my circus and these are my monkeys. Like, God damn it, how did I accrue? Okay, I guess this is, you do that. Oh, God damn it, I actually care about all of you.
Gross.
Like,
A manager at like a store who actually cares about his people under him and is like trying to shelter them from the higher levels of management.
Yep.
Yeah.
But, so I mentioned like it was Miles' favorite, like my favorite Tim moment with Miles is you know, all the Marcos stuff. My favorite moment with my favorite moment with Wynn, right, is just like a whole Erika, you're the roller coaster of the one thing, going from like I'm gonna flirt with a pigeon to like
I was not seducing.
she was so
pigeon.
yeah.
No one
shut up.
believes
So
you.
the sign when you were seducing a pigeon, but like doing
Fucking birds, huh?
Fucking
that-
birds.
into like combat murder, then immediately into just like connections with Ramirez in the woods, and then full on like, hey guys, I've been waiting for this, sobbing. Like your ability to like take that whole fucking range the entire time was so goddamn good. Like it was fucking great.
That was a fucking
Like
roller
it was
coaster.
like fucking, it was a roller coaster, and it was like a privilege to get to be a part of it. Like I remember we were talking about it afterwards. Like God, it was so good.
Yeah, you guys, you listeners didn't see the 15 minutes of ugly crying where Garrett and Rob were both just holding Erika while she lost her shit.
Garrett fucking, so my favorite Johnny moments, right? Like there's a few that come to mind. I like the protective dad stuff, but like the one that comes to mind more than anything, I think, was embracing Vito. It was such an unexpected, like, I gotta do the like it was like you were doing it to protect everyone else because and like it's the mission and like do the whole, like it was just such a
Character was so against the idea of having to embrace.
yes, it
And
was
then-
such a good, such an honest, like interesting
But
moment.
then realized he had that ability to do so and could save the scene or save the day, but
Yeah.
also do something really.
Well, I remember being impressed
really
by it,
horrible.
like as a fucking player, just because that is
Yeah.
not a thing I would have considered.
No.
I, like that did not even cross my mind. And so when you were like, "Fuck," I embrace him, I was like, "Oh shit, yeah,
Yeah.
fuck." Yeah, that was a very cool fucking moment. And then Rebecca, like so we were joking about like how much you love the Pendragon stuff, like, but specifically the moment for me is Britta's. I really liked the Britta breakdown in the van, but the one that came the one before that, right, when you are alone finally in the room and you're just like collapsing in on your, like the Britta has had so much. Britta's like you're in a difficult position, right? Because like she's the amnesiac and shit's been like running since the day you were embraced and you're brand new, like all that kind of shit. And so the portrayal of the weight of all of that shit hitting at once when she finally has like a quiet minute to herself was just fucking very well done. Like very, very well done.
Very.
So I think, oh man, there's just a lot. Probably my favorite moment with Miles was when we lured the Sabat, or not a Sabat, when we lured the Setites to that garage, and one of them was still alive, and he gets to draw his katana and put your arm out. He goes, "That stays with me. That's mine.
Yep.
You go back and tell your masters." It was such oh man, that's
Clan of Kings.
But you laid a hand
what's
on me.
what's some stones and like some freaking just
There's such
high level
gravitas.
arrogance of just like, I'm gonna use my katana to take your arm. That's mine. And like real. Well, oh man, it's a good moment. I thought that
Gave
was
me vibes of Griffith.
Oh
Yeah.
Oh, Berserk. You know what I mean?
They're good guy who's dipping his toe into villain vibes,
Yeah.
right? Where you're like, oh,
Like,
damn,
wait a second. There's
he could go dark.
yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Gosh, there's so many good moments. I had like Britta. I kind of loved the fact that there was that time when you found out about the crescent on your hand, and she came to Johnny like she had to tell him that she fucked up, and like we had that good scene on the balcony, which was just like and that was kind of like nice too, because it you know, in a weird way it felt good that your character was reinforcing my own character in the group, and that you were kind of like you were like kind of like yes-anding what I put down about the character of being this kind of like weird grumpy dad of the coterie, and that, you know, yeah, I don't know, that just it just felt so cool of just like seeing, yeah, I don't know.
No, I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah,
Played in that way.
You know, I think I like a lot of those moments, because even with Neil, you know, some of the weird Neil Johnny moments that we've gotten.
Yeah.
You know, after in Boston when we got jumped, and in the Haven, and Johnny managed to kind of like save everybody, but
Very cool moment.
he had to kill a bunch of people for it. Like, I think Neil kind of like went out of his way to check in with him and be like, "You're okay." And Johnny and Neil don't really get along very well, because
We're very different people.
yeah, and I mean, I love role playing with Rob, but it sucks that I don't get to be as buddy with his character as I'd like to be. But I think it's important that Johnny, you know, he puts Neil over by keeping him at arm's distance, because of the fact that blood sorcery should not be something that you like, right? It should be something that people are scared of in the world. So I think it's important that he has somebody nearby that is kind of helps sell the audience on the fact that what he's doing is not okay.
Yeah.
So seeing them kind of like, you know, or having Neil kind of like these like, you know, like dangerous, like, hey man, are you okay? Like, once again, I love those kind of like moments where the characters check in and really, like, you know, go out of their way to like show their emotions, which was, they feel good. And then Wynn is just nonstop freaking I mean, she really is the badass of the group. You know, like Johnny just does wrestling moves. He doesn't actually hurt anybody or kill anybody. But
He
like
suplexes fucking stone dogs.
Yeah, I was just gonna say,
yeah,
he
exactly.
suplexed a stone
I mean, don't get
dog.
me wrong, I love that, but like, you know, he suplexes, he smashes through walls, he grabs people, but Wynn's the one who's the actual fucking dangerous person. And in a weird way, she's like also like the comic relief, and she's the badass, and like it's just I get to sit next to her at the table, and too often, like, I love the fact that you have absconded with my Ravnos. Like, Kabir is points on my sheet.
Yep. I have put nothing into this background, and I've stolen it through.
I feel like at this point you've put a lot into that background.
And
I've spent so much blood on that background.
oh yeah, and it's so good. And every time that she interacts with Kabir, I fucking love it, because Lex is on one side of me, and Erika's on the other side, and I get to just sit in the middle, like, giggling every time the two of them are like, "Oh, what's going on? What's up, baby?"
I take a break from doing the now kiss motion, and Garrett gets
so
it
good.
for a minute.
Yeah, too many moments, guys.
Well, it sounds like, since everyone did everyone else,
Rebecca did it. And
I am going to do this in my way by referencing everybody else's moments with me.
I would expect nothing less.
That's
Miles.
right. Thank you.
that's right. Good job, Miles.
Yes.
Bravo.
I think the one that with Britta, because actually season 2 with Miles and Britta has been pretty bumpy.
Yeah.
Especially since the blood bonding part, it's just been I've kind of had to put you over there.
You spent a bunch of the season like keeping shit from her.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, a lot of secrets this season.
But it goes back to the first season in the Royale where I'm like, what's up with keeping this shit from me?
That was a really good moment.
I was like,
Yeah.
of all the times and places, this is where we're choosing the rebellion. I remember it being one of our first scenes together by ourselves since the interrogation where I sassed you. Good times.
I feel like you maybe got me back for keeping secrets.
No.
Oh,
I'm Prince now. I decide how many secrets people have.
That's right. Thank you very much. Wynn, I think our best is the fact that we have just the driest dialogue with each other, just dry sarcasm, just back and forth, just like, you're like, I'm poking you. I'm like, why are you doing this? You're like, I just can't help
You have a
myself."
fucking tendency to like smack everyone else who pokes you, and then Wynn pokes you, and you're like, oh, God damn it! All right,
Are you
Why?
still here? Why are you doing the thing? I don't know,
good.
man.
And part of it is a lot of times is you're just like, I'm being aggressive, and I'm like, why? And you're like, I don't, cause I need to be, and I'm like, fine.
Where it's like I have no idea, but it's here.
Because I have a reptile brain and I'm not gonna fuck you, so I have to fight you. And I'm not gonna eat you.
right.
yeah, that's friendship. That's
Yep. Thank you.
I appreciate the selection you've made.
I will leave food out for you.
That's
And now-
fucking teamwork.
And now we can speak Fisher Cat and tell
Yeah.
each other to fuck off. It's gonna be great.
I like, by the way, that in that fucking scene, I don't know if it made it to air, but you guys are like, "Hey, can we understand each other through animal speak without doing stuff?" And Lex was like, "No," and then that did not register, and you guys are like, "No, we're doing it though."
Yeah, there's like animal sounds at each other. Which, by the way, to be 100% clear, that ruling stands. You two are just fucking weird.
I assume that she's also like flicking me off
You
at the
two are
same
just
time.
you two are just vibing together, like just gently hissing and like confiding in
gentle.
one another.
So yes, that is not a house rule. It's just us being fucking weird.
And supporting that, Johnny 100% thinks the two of you can talk to each other.
Honestly, I have no reason to think otherwise.
Right. And then it really goes back. The person that I've done the most with one-on-one is with my right-hand man, Johnny.
Finger guy.
We have definitely had a bunch of scenes and I think it all comes back to the season 1 finale. I don't know if it was clear in the and when we did it, but that
Do we want to talk about those mechanics in a minute?
I was going to talk about it basically now that we all had to write down
Yeah.
without talking to each other what we were going to do in the
Very
scene.
fucking cool thing
Yeah.
Lex did.
And me and Johnny both decided to go after the werewolf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a very easy possibility that one of you went after.
And we
ended up
also I
fucking
think
alone.
we also
Yeah.
so we saw the werewolf kill 3 vampires casually.
Yes.
Yes.
Just
Yeah.
dead. And, you know, I don't know how much fortitude you had at the time. I had 0 fortitude on my sheet. I'm a
Not
fucking
a ton.
glass cannon Bruja. And he's like, all right, so, and the way that Lex does sometimes, he was like, here's how this is going to work.
Yep.
It was
Lex
a
goes very business when one of us is in
I,
danger.
Seriously, when death is on the table, like, things get very transactional. And in not a bad way, in a like a,
No, in a very honest way.
Yeah.
in a way where
Hey, guys,
you
you-
realize
this is where you're at.
oh shit, I'm reading a choose your adventure, and now this one page is going to take me to death, and the other one's going to take me to good times, maybe. But
Not
anyhow,
death.
he passed out little sheets to everybody that had choices on them. So each one of us had a bespoke set of choices based on where we were, and he said, "You need to make your choices and pass them back to me. You don't get to talk to each other. Well, this is just what you're doing." And so we all did, and yeah, fucking Tim
you-
and I were like, well, I'm ready to lose my sheet. Are you?
I was like, let's fucking fight this werewolf. I came prepared
I
by
feel
giving
like-
this knife to someone else.
Ever since that throwdown, where you used Lucida's knives, by the way, ever since that fight,
We gave
I
motion
feel like
back.
you two have fought each other nonstop about all kinds of shit, but you guys always end up coming back to that moment where, like, hey, Remember the lupine?
Well, it's a nice thing I think
We've
about
been through everything. The
Johnny-
worst the world has to offer.
Johnny and Miles' relationship. I think is great because, I mean, Clan Bruja and Clan Ventru are such wonderful enemies and allies all at the same time.
Perfect foils, yeah.
Right, like in a lot of Vampire the Masquerade lore. From just TV shows. Remember the old TV show? Like
Yep.
they were like, they are like consistent rivals, and even goes back in the clan lore, right?
It's in Sparta and Athens.
I thought it was Carthage.
Carthage was later.
Oh.
Sparta and Athens was the first.
And
lost Carthage.
Tim and I think we just.
Carthago.
I do really enjoy the fact that I think we are constantly putting each other over the top, right? Like I at least I try to play it that I'm always respecting him as like the top dog in New Haven in terms of the political scene, and I try to make sure that like we give him wide berth so that he looks cool doing political stuff. And on the flip side, like, Johnny's a big bruiser guy, and that only comes across on audio if everybody at the table pretends that I am a big bruiser guy. Because Garrett in real life, I'm 5'9", I'm not a big dude. But they react to Johnny as if he is this larger than life presence.
Dude, the idea of Johnny frenzying is so goddamn scary. It's like
Damn scary.
Yeah, well, we before we actually started storytelling, we just ran a test with the audio.
Where Johnny was the surprise
and
boss
Johnny killed Neil in a very nice parallel to our tabletop relationship.
So I think it's Lex's. Do we have to go? Is Lex's best moments now? Is that how this is?
No, he was just talking about the stuff. You can if you want to.
Pick your favorite shot.
Yeah.
The favorite moment
Yeah,
of
it's
each
a little
child
different
at this
coming from
point.
the storytellers.
It's actually pretty easy to identify what I think my favorite moments for you guys were.
No.
So I feel Johnny was the Bruja rant all day for me.
Yeah.
Throwing the dude off
Yeah,
the
yeah,
roof.
yeah.
I felt like
yes.
that was when
Chef's kiss.
that was that first time in our story where Johnny was like, you know what? I think I'm just gonna fuck this guy up. And
You know what? Not fuck me.
and I feel like that was a very good reveal that no, Johnny is in fact a badass. He's not just blowing smoke. For Wynn, it was it was the scene with the gangrel primogen.
Oh my yes.
I knew he was going to say Rusty.
Her scene with Rusty was the fucking stuff of legend. Because that whole recording was kind of like, hey guys, so on a given night, if Wynn's just walking around one night, what happens? And it's like, turns out people die, there are ghosts, just fucking chaos ensues.
There were zombies.
And Wynn just came in saying the most ratchet shit she could come up with in that moment. And it was just like, do you want to fucking go? And Rusty was just like, I have no idea what's going on anymore, but I can't back down. And then he just died. He died a horrible death.
He died. So I'm so perpetually afraid because by all accounts, Wynn's a badass. But I'm always afraid the dice are going to be like, not today.
It's
I
always
feel like-
a possibility, but it hasn't fucking
But
happened
it
yet.
hasn't
I feel
fucking
like
happened.
That's why he's
Wynn
next to me, because I'm
and
the vortex.
Britta.
Roll bad luck.
Wynn and Britta both have the problem consistently where they're like, I'm just going to hit him a little, whatever. and then someone fucking dies. And then they're just like, oops, man, why does that keep happening every single time that I end up attacking someone? And they never catch on. When to this day we'd be like, all right, I guess it's gonna be a long tussle, and whoop, dead. And she's like, oh no, again? Why does this keep happening? It's just a very funny thing.
Oh, man.
Miles was probably the scene with Z when he had just about made it to the summit of the mountain he'd been climbing since the first episode. And this thing came back to haunt him. And Tim, the whole table goes quiet and Tim's mind is just visibly racing. And it was cool because it's not that Miles got like Miles didn't panic. Miles was kind of reacting like, okay, this is it. This is the debate. This is where we go back and forth with manipulations. I'm gonna do this. Me, manipulative Venture's gonna go toe to toe with manipulative ancient demon from like the beginning of time.
Yeah.
And it was just fucking cool. Very cool hot seat like stuff. And I think my favorite scene for
Hi, JoJo.
Hi, JoJo.
I think it's very tough for Britta because she has like some wildly different scenes that have gone down for her. But I think the scene that made me confident in Britta as a concept and made me feel good about like what was coming together for her was pretty early. It was her confrontation with Shaw during the first season when he kind of like went at her, and Shaw was a pretty fucking dangerous dude. It's funny because if you look back at it now, he doesn't really. He's not on your level at this point.
The scale has grown.
Yeah, but at the time he was the big fish,
Fucking big scary
and
dude. We know how to deal with him.
and he had Britta cornered, and he had presented to her this terrible fate, and it was kind of like this really cool moment where Britta was like, "Don't get me wrong, I recognize that I am an underdog in this, but I intend to fight." And that was just very fucking cool. So I very much enjoyed that, and I felt like that set the tone for Britta in a big way.
Yeah.
And probably my favorite moment for Neil is definitely him hanging out with his Nos buddy. Because all right, hear me out, right?
Defend it, man.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got me sold.
Because so Fester is this guy that's kind of struggling with in life. He's his fate is to be this guy that's largely ignored and unseen, and can never really be on the level of the people that he considers so beautiful. Like part of why he admires Miles so much is that Miles is the guy, the peacock that fucking struts around court and you know what I mean? But that's Miles. Fester can never be that. So much of his destiny is decided for him. Yeah. So when he was hanging out with Neil, it was kind of like, wait a second. If I bring this cool coterie guy, maybe I can stand out. And Neil is kind of like, hey man, I really need you, and we got to be subtle here. And I absolutely enjoyed that Neil's kind of innate ability to make the NPC feel heard, but not get waylaid by the NPC's own personal desires. And there's a very good balance going into that scene. And it kind of set Neil up to later on kind of be this character's hero, right? Because when the character showed up to the party, he was there to be a servant doing super unfortunate work. But with Neil, he had a chance to stand out. He ended up surviving this crazy attack, and all of a sudden he's this guy. If you think about it, right? I don't know if anyone picked up on this, but the Nosferatu left Fester behind.
Yeah.
Yes.
They did not give a shit about him. But Neil kind of scooped him up, and it kind of it was a very good demonstration of Neil's ability to not fit in, but have that be why he accomplishes these things that other kindred can't. It was very, very good. Very good.
One of the questions, we've been talking about our characters and sort of, I think one of the questions that came in from actually the guys over the Fourth Leg podcast, who Lex was on for a little bit, wanted to know how much our characters match up with ourselves in real life. What aspects of ourselves are in these characters, and do we typically fit within these archetypes, or do we kind of pass these hats around? Or
Well, first of all, can we just talk about how wonderful and supportive they are? They're just great to work with, and I really appreciate their presence and interaction at Fourth Leg.
Yeah, they've been fans for a while. It's very cool. It's been very cool to
thank you
interact
so
with all
much.
the podcasts and stuff.
You guys are freaking awesome.
Yeah, super great.
But yeah, I mean, I can tell that. So Neil is me in a lot of ways. Like I'm not a hoarder. I'm not like I don't, but I definitely have anxiety issues and like feel that whole like I don't know if I feel seen, guys. I feel misunderstood. Like nothing freaks Neil out more than like social anxiety, and like it's why he gets like freaked out by Toreador and like just like kind of freezes up and like has to scramble and fill silence. All that shit is straight out of me. Like that is me 100%. Like obviously I think every character has like a little aspect of yourself in it somewhere. But that's the part of Neil that's kind of me. I'm not actually into astronomy or the occult or any of that kind of shit, but like
Not that he's telling us.
not that I'm telling you guys.
I think for me, for Britta, the biggest difference between the two of us is how Britta really has like such a drive to survive in a way where like I'm much more defiant as a person than Britta, but Britta will like meld and adapt and she'll do what she has to do versus that sense of defiance. I think the thing that's closest to me about Britta is the empathy that she pours into like trying to understand people, trying to convey things to people, trying to socially navigate and really that like longing for understanding going both ways.
I mean, Miles is just a mild understatement of myself. I mean, my glory is unbound.
Miles is just a humble Tim.
Straight up.
Weird fucking weird energy today.
Less successful, less cool. What's up, Tim? I see you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. He just has more money. That's it. That's really what it is. I don't know. Characters like that, kind of stuff like that, it's always weird for me because I'm always portraying parts of my personality. It's just which ones I'm dialing up or not.
For sure.
That's
Yeah.
a good way
For
to-
me, especially, is like I'm not usually ever playing something that isn't me, but sometimes I'm tapping into things that are me in a different way.
That's a decent way to put that. Yeah, like you dial some stuff up a lot, you dial some stuff back, and then you got a different person going. Like,
Right.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Wynn is Erika's not much of a murder hobo.
Not much.
That is a worrying qualifier.
Just on the weekends.
The unifying thing, the big overlap in the Venn diagram between Wynn and Erika is
It's a circle.
it is in fact not a circle. I've never
of
killed a
pancakes.
man after accusing him of sucking dicks.
That was like
So many
suspicious.
caveats on that.
Or how like specific word.
Very
I've never killed a man. Hold on, guys. I got to add a few things to.
So you get way too specific, and everyone's like, "Okay, what? Like, hey, would anyone like some not human meat? What, dude? Why did you put that qualifier there? You didn't need to do that."
Because it's true. The big overlap is that Wynn and Erika are both at their core caregivers.
Yeah.
That is interestingly enough not one of Wynn's nature demeanor combos, but that is
Definitely a mama bear, though.
she's
Yeah.
definitely a mama bear. I think if anything, there is a lot of overlap between Wynn and Erika in the sense that neither of us have ever really felt like we are part of a social group. Yeah, I was diagnosed with autism when I was 11, and in the late dark ages of special education, there was still that sense of you're not really one of us. So I kind of grew up with the idea that like, okay, I'm Ariel, the Little Mermaid, wanting to be part of the human world, and I'm never going to get there. And so Wynn is kind of, whereas Erika has tried to fight with that a little bit, Wynn has just been like, all right, fuck y'all. And is kind of like eager, like, why are you guys playing into the bullshit? So if anything, Wynn's like a happier version of Erika, in some weird context. She has no idea why people are interested in her. Yeah, I guess she's like Erika in all the saddest ways.
This got pretty sad.
Damn, man.
I'm
an honest
spiraling
answer.
into some deep
Erika,
shit
Oh
here.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we fucking love you.
Yeah, I fucking love you guys.
So follow up on that,
And
Garrett.
Kabir fucking loves Wynn.
And Kabir fucking loves Wynn, and she fucking loves him, and neither of them know how to shower. And
He knows how.
That man reeks of Wolf Panther.
yeah, no,
That's not how you do it.
So there's definitely some overlap between Johnny and myself. I mean, I think I kind of like surface level project to be more of a badass than I actually am, which I think is the same with Johnny, right? You know, because I think at Johnny's core he's a cream puff. I think it's probably the same with me.
I mean, Johnny's a wife guy.
yeah.
But you know, like I always wear my leather jacket places. You know, I have my truck that I drive around.
You can hear the licking on
I used
JoJo's so excited.
Yes, JoJo.
And just for everyone else out there, my our constant companion at the table is my dog JoJo.
He's just ravishing Lex right now.
He's pretty good. He's usually pretty quiet. Occasionally you hear his collar rattle. But
He's a really good boy.
yeah.
He's a good boy.
You know, I guess you know the thing about if I had to like kind of, I think Tim put it the best is like you amp up certain parts of yourself
Yeah.
for characters, right? I think all my characters usually kind of fall into the spectrum of like somewhere in the Venn diagram of like fighter, thief, and paladin. Like somewhere in those three classes you find a character, and usually I'll kind of like lean to one side or the other, and I might take some part of my personality and warp that a little bit and amp it up.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I don't nearly have the anger that Johnny has, but I mean, like I remember times when I used to be angry when I was a kid, so I kind of like draw on that. But I'm not really an angry guy. I think, you know, I definitely, Johnny has a lot of morose moments where he's kind of just, you know, quiet and introspective, and a little bit kind of like just, you know, sad, I guess. And I think that's probably one of the things that I think I feel closest to, that I really amp up for the portrayal of the character. But you know, I guess in the terms of the spectrum, he's definitely more on the fighter paladin side of the thing. He's definitely furthest away because I mean I love playing tricksters too. Like that's I think one of my favorite kind of character tropes is the trickster. And I really kind of veered Johnny away from that. Because I don't think that really helps fit. I don't think that me portraying a trickster does not fit in this group or this story. I think. But yeah, that's I think that'd be my answer for that.
So the next group of questions we're going to do are sort of about more like the plot and the characters as we go forward, but I think we'll pick that up next time.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. If you would like to support the Path of Night podcast and the crew in our projects, we currently accept contributions to coffee.com/pathofnight. And thank you for listening.